Chapter 978. Chu Yang estimated that it wouldn't be a problem for this plaza to accommodate 100,000 people. In front of the plaza, there was a huge hall that towered into the sky. It seemed that one could only see the top of the hall if they stretched their neck. There were layers upon layers, sacred and solemn. In front of the hall, not only were there many people who came to participate in the Sky Academy's examination gathered, but there were also many people kneeling in the corner. There were young people, middle-aged people, and even old people. These people were all here to study in the Sky Academy. They tried to use their sincerity to move the Academy and enter the Academy. It could be said that in order to enter the Sky Academy, many people tried their best and were unscrupulous. When Chu Yang was in the desolate village, his sixth great-uncle had already told him about this. These people who were kneeling were all people who failed the examination many times and were completely expelled from the Sky Academy. Look, aren't those the natives of the Eastern Wilderness? I didn't expect them to dare to come this year. I was wondering why I suddenly smelled a thick smell of dirt and dog stench. It turns out that the dogs of the Eastern Wilderness have come. This bunch of dogs. I can smell the dog stench on them from afar. It's really disgusting. As soon as Chu Yang and the others approached, the people in front of the hall immediately mocked and ridiculed them. At this moment, Chu Yang couldn't help but feel depressed. If they were in the Eastern Wilderness, he would immediately teach them a lesson. But now they were in the East Continent. Although he had recovered his cultivation, with 200 dragon power, 9-fold burst, and divine demon martial soul, it would be difficult for him to kill anyone at the 5th or 6th level of the spirit realm. After all, the East Continent was different from the Eastern Wilderness. Chu Yang could kill people who were 2 realms higher than him. That was probably a thing of the past. Chu Yang held back his anger and ignored these people. He walked straight to the old man in charge of the enrollment. The dogs have always been deaf and blind. Even if you hit them with a stick, they wouldn't even make a sound. They're just dogs. What else can they do? If they dare to bare their teeth, they will die immediately. I don't care about the dogs, but I care about the chicken on the dog's shoulder. What is it? What kind of dog is it? A chicken? These mongrels have really brought about a great deal of confusion. There are actually so many unknown lowly species. Ha! The parrot was infuriated. Thrusting its wings, it roared, "That thing! Your mother gave birth to you in a cesspool. You're a 2-legged maggot. You can't even pee. How dare you mock this divine bird? To give birth to a 2-legged maggot like you, I really admire your mother's courage." 2-legged maggot? The person who mocked the parrot immediately felt his blood boil. This was a great humiliation to him. Not only did the mongrel of the Eastern Wilderness talk back, it even dared to mock and humiliate him. Ha ha! The people from the Eastern Continent burst into laughter after hearing this. This made this person feel even more ashamed. He really wanted to find a hole in the ground and hide in it. If it weren't for the fact that I can't fight here, even if I have to dirty my hands, I would tear you apart. Chu Yang's expression remained unchanged. He had observed the people who were participating in the Sky Academy's exam. The lowest cultivation was at least at the 9th level of the ascending soul realm. Moreover, there were only a few of them. Most of them were at the soul reincarnation realm and spirit realm. Among the people present, there were even martial artists at the 9th level of the spirit realm. TSK, you still have the face to say that even if you know. With such IQ, your mother didn't have to worry about letting you out. Once again, I admire your mother's courage. Little bastard, you have to be careful. No matter how eloquent you are, a 2-legged maggot can't understand bird language. Master is wise. Use the king's disdain to despise him. The man and the parrot answered each other. Instantly, the man's expression turned hideous as his eyes became bloodshot. What kind of humiliation could cause such a reaction? Could it be done with just a few words? Chu Yang couldn't help but squint his eyes. It seemed that being humiliated by them was worse than being killed for the people from the eastern continent. Chapter 979. Brother, restrain yourself. Someone held him down and said, "These dogs from the eastern wilderness are here to provoke you. If you really attack and get killed, the dogs will get what they want." That's right. They're not convinced that they're dogs. They don't know what they're talking about. Chu Yang's eyes were full of disdain. It was as if he was looking at a maggot in a dung pit. Not only did he cover his nose, but his face was also full of disgust. The people from the East Continent were instantly angered by Chu Yang. Chu Yang said, "Come and bite me if you don't like it. I like how you can't wait to skin me but can't kill me." Quack. The parrot also laughed strangely and ridiculed. "The two-legged maggots of the Eastern Continent are so weak that they can't even withstand a single blow from the king." Cui Xinho and the others were stunned when they heard that. The people from the eastern wilderness could be so arrogant. Then, they couldn't help but laugh. Chu Yang and the parrot didn't seem to lose when it came to bickering. However, their smiles soon disappeared. They couldn't fight here, but couldn't they fight elsewhere? Two-legged maggots in the cesspit, get out of the way. Don't smell this divine bird. Look at how you squirm. This divine bird is worried that I'll starve to death. Chu Yang walked straight in under the parrot's arrogant words. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion was heard. A white-clothed youth suddenly flew over, and blocked the path of Chu Yang and the others. He squinted his eyes, and sized Chu Yang up from head to toe. Then, he exposed an incomparably disgusted expression on his face. It was as if he had stepped on dog shit. "Dog, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Kneel immediately." The young man in white sneered and ordered, "I'm not very patient. I'll give you 3 fingers time." He raised 3 fingers. "Also, dog, don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you can't fight here. You're just dogs. I can make you kneel with a look." What the hell? Chu Yang was furious. He immediately glanced at the white-clothed youth. He was only at spirit stage 5th level. His expression could not help but turn cold. This idiot should be rejoicing. If they were in another place, he would kill this thing in a matter of minutes. Then Chu Yang smiled. "Two-legged maggot, may I know your humble name?" The young man in white smiled sinisterly. He was so disdainful that he didn't even bother to get angry. "You're just a mongrel. You don't know my name yet." Chu Yang shook his head and said, "It's not your real name, and don't insult these 4 words. Use the humble name that I just created. It suits you best. After all, this is something that I have painstakingly designed for you. You are proud. The Lord has bestowed upon you infinite glory." The people from the East Continent were all stunned. Who was the one who was being arrogant? This was definitely the most arrogant person they had ever seen from the eastern wilderness. "You're courting death." The white-clothed youth's blood rushed to his face as killing intent gushed out. "Little bastard, it doesn't matter if you don't know my humble name. Just record it like this. Today, a two-legged maggot was despised to death by your king's disdainful gaze. As a result, you gained enlightenment and comprehended the supreme divine ability to kill with your eyes." "That's enough, master." The parrot laughed strangely. "You think too highly of him by despising him with your king's disdainful gaze. I'll kill the maggot with my king's disdainful gaze. This is even more appropriate." As it laughed strangely, the parrot rolled its eyes and looked away. At this moment, Cui Xinho and the other 2's hearts were in their throats. They were only at the soul wheel stage, but their opponent was at the spirit stage. If he borrowed the might of the heavens, they would immediately kneel down. Although they won in a verbal battle, the more beautiful they won now, the more miserable and laughable they would be when they lose later. However, the 3 of them noticed that Chu Yang didn't seem to be worried at all. Instead, he had a cold smile on his face. In fact, the 3 of them could clearly sense the dense killing intent that Chu Yang was emitting. Since they could sense it, the white-clothed youth would naturally be able to sense it as well. Ha ha! The white-clothed youth laughed out of anger. Good, good, good. You're just a mere dog, yet you dare to have killing intent towards me. If I don't make a mad dog like you kneel down today, I, Gong Sun Liang, will write my name. Buzz. Chapter 980. When Gong Sun Liang made his move, the two old men at the registration area immediately looked over. However, they did not say anything in the end. It was obvious that this was within the Sky Court's permission, or perhaps they were biased towards Gong Sunliang. As for the reason, Chu Yang did not care. His expression was calm as he allowed Gong Sunliang to make his move. He looked at the surrounding crowd and saw that they were all sneering. There was no one that sympathized with him. So this is the East Continent, Chu Yang said. At this moment, Gong Sunliang's mental energy pressure had already descended. Ripples appeared in the air and formed into a sharp wave that charged towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang did not move at all. The sharp wave silently collapsed. The ripples that appeared in the air stopped in front of him, as if the wave had encountered a dam. Gong Sunliang had only used his mental energy pressure. How could he possibly intimidate Chu Yang? This was simply ridiculous. When Chu Yang was in the eastern wilderness, he could even assassinate a soul amalgamation realm. Although he was in the East Continent, where the world's binding power had increased countless times and he was unable to kill someone who was 2 realms higher than him, a mere spirit stage 5th stage was nothing in his eyes. In the East Continent, the laws of the world had also recognized his extraordinariness. After completing the laws, he would have no problem killing a spirit stage 5th stage. Gaga! The parrot immediately cackled and mocked. 2-legged maggots. Now you know what it feels like to have a bug move a mountain. Even so, you still dare to show off. Are all 2-legged maggots like this in the Eastern Continent? It let out a long sigh. It seems that my lord wants to be invincible and lonely. How pitiful. I'm about to cry. Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing were instantly convinced by the parrot. Invincible and lonely? How dare you say that? If they were like this, then the people from the East Continent would be even more so. They were provoked by the parrot and immediately sneered. Gong Sunliang, even if you want to embarrass yourself, don't embarrass the East Continent. You can't even deal with a mere dog. You're truly a piece of trash. If you don't have the ability, Gong Sunliang, squat in the corner and don't make a sound. Gong Sunliang's face was completely red as he roared. Mongrel, do you think you're so great? I haven't even used my full strength yet. TSK. The parrot sneered. It's as if my lord didn't want you to use your full strength. You seem to be very benevolent. This divine bird has lived for a long time. Fortunately, I paid attention just now. Otherwise, I would have laughed my head off. After it finished speaking, it poked its wings and taunted them. 2-legged maggots, you're all the same. You're all maggots that crawl in a cesspool. Crawl together, my master will deal with you all in one go. Otherwise, if you all come one by one, not to mention anything else, my lord will be disgusted to death by you all. Dogbird, it stinks. Gong Sunliang, what are you waiting for? Why don't you borrow the power of heaven and earth? Let the dogs of the East Continent see the difference between us. As soon as the fighting broke out, almost everyone surrounded them. There were 3 groups of people on the inside and 3 groups of people on the outside. The sheer number of people was enough to cause Cui Xinho and the others to panic. 1. Gong Sunliang suddenly activated his mental energy once again. His pressure increased by another level. Mongrel, kneel down before me. In the air, the ripples turned into a huge wave. It was as if the waves of heaven and earth were crashing down. Wave after wave crashed down, causing rumbling sounds to ring out. The momentum was terrifying. Gong Sunliang borrowed the power of heaven and earth, and released the pressure of a spirit stage 5th level. When the 2 old men at the registration area saw such a power, One of them couldn't help but exclaim, "The children of the Gong Sun family are truly extraordinary." This kind of mental energy pressure is considered top-notch within the spirit stage 5th level. That's right. The dogs of the eastern wilderness probably won't be able to resist this. Chapter 981. A dog from the eastern wilderness? Chu Yang squinted his eyes. Even the old man from the Sky Academy, who was in charge of recruitment, was the same. This caused him to be extremely furious. The people from the eastern wilderness were like pigs and dogs in the East Continent. Very good. I'll let you guys see a joke. I'll let you guys see enough. He was completely enraged. Rumble. The spiritual pressure swept over like a huge wave, covering the sky and covering the earth. A vast expanse of white actually appeared, as if a huge wave had swept over from the horizon. However, the huge wave immediately weakened strangely as soon as it got close to Chu Yang. Then, it quickly weakened. In the end, when it came into contact with Chu Yang, only a very weak ripple was left. It was like a ripple formed by a raindrop falling into water. It was very tiny. Throughout the entire process, not a single strand of Chu Yang's hair fluttered, let alone his sleeve. How is this possible? How is this possible? The people of the East Continent were all shocked. The two old men from the recruitment office were also shocked. Chu Yang seemed to be at the peak of the 9th level of the soul wheel stage. No matter how powerful he was, it was impossible for him to resist such a mental energy pressure so easily. You haven't used your full strength yet, right? Use more strength. Chu Yang chuckled. Not to mention anything else, just his identity as a rank 5 array master was enough to resist this mental energy pressure. Not to mention, his martial soul was extremely heaven-defying. Gaga. The parrot also laughed strangely. A spirit stage 5th level is indeed powerful. This mental energy pressure can be considered top-notch. Wahahaha. The faces of the two old men in the admissions office reddened as the parrot repeated exactly what they had just said. I haven't used my full strength yet. Dog, what are you being so arrogant for? Gong Sunliang roared as his long hair soared into the sky. Bang, bang, bang. With 5 explosions, divine bridges appeared one after another behind him. A total of 5 divine bridges emerged from his body and entered the void, connecting him to the entire world. Buzz, buzz. At this moment, he activated his spiritual power with all his might. The flesh between his eyebrows actually split open, and blood flowed out. Because he had exerted too much force, his eyes were almost detached from their sockets. Veins popped out on his face, throbbing incessantly. Gong Sunliang was going all out, urging his spiritual power with all his might. With a loud bang, Gong Sunliang's spiritual power took the form of a mountain from between his eyebrows. After it came out of dystocia, it fell towards Chu Yang. A gust of wind blew, and Chu Yang's long hair fluttered. He clapped and said, "Not bad, not bad. You can finally move my hair. You have indeed made great progress." As he clapped, the sound waves formed by the applause also appeared, welcoming the mountain. Then, the sound waves formed circles of ripples, like an abyss, swallowing the entire mountain, completely disappearing. However many mountains there were, it would devour as many mountains as there were. Gong Sunliang's eyes were already bleeding. Caw caw. The parrot cackled again. You're so serious about reading that your eyes are bleeding. Keep up the good work. The heavens reward the diligent. Don't ever give up. The people from the East Continent were completely silent. Gong Sunliang had used all the strength he could muster to blow Chu Yang's hair, but that was all. How was this possible? Wahahaha. The parrot saw that the people from the East Continent were as silent as ghosts. Unity is strength, it said. Two-legged maggots from the East Continent, hurry up and get moving. Cheer for your comrades. I can't stand to see you all so cold and indifferent. But no one said anything. With a thump, Gong Sunliang finally couldn't hold on any longer and sat on the ground. His chest was like a bellows as he gasped for breath. His whole body was drenched in sweat as if he had just been fished out of the water. Chu Yang lowered his head and looked down at Gong Sunliang. Have you used your full strength yet? If you haven't, you can continue. I like people who don't know when to stop. The sarcastic laughter entered Gong Sunliang's ears. His vision couldn't help but turn dark. His prideful heart was shattered into pieces, and he was extremely embarrassed. He really wanted to dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it. Why aren't you talking? Chu Yang chuckled. You're at the 5th level of the spirit realm. Aren't you very capable? Why don't you continue? Gong Sunliang was too ashamed to show his face. He really wanted to die right now. Why aren't you talking? What do you mean? Chu Yang didn't spare him. He continued to humiliate him. You haven't used your full strength yet, so please continue. Otherwise, you'll say that I'm bullying the people from the Gong Sun family. That's not good. For a long time, Gong Sunliang still couldn't say a word. Chu Yang immediately said with disdain, Tisk, it's really boring. You've been humiliated like this, and you still don't dare to kill people. How disappointing. It's fine if you don't want to. He extended his hand towards Gong Sunliang. Hello, Gong Sunliang. Chapter 982. Gong Sunliang had said that he could make Chu Yang kneel down by raising his hand. If he couldn't do it, he would write his name upside down. This time, he really wrote his name upside down. You dog, don't push us too far. Some people from the East Continent were so angry that they roared angrily. Push us too far? Who pushed us too far? I didn't touch your girls or steal your thunder, but you all despised me, ridiculed me, and humiliated me. Who pushed us too far? Chu Yang chuckled and glanced at them. Yes, I pushed you too far. What can you do? If you don't agree, let's continue to fight. Let's see who wins. Then, he mocked them. I won't count your number. You're all two-legged maggots. Come at me together. Quack, quack. The parrot was very cooperative. My lord, this is to show you what it means to be invincible and lonely. You usually don't see this kind of elegance, so I ask you to cherish this opportunity. Cui Xinho and the other two were completely dumbfounded. Chu Yang was very amazing. They already knew that when they were in the deserted village, but they never expected him to be so amazing. Moreover, it seemed that this was not his limit. However, he actually wanted to challenge everyone present. Was he crazy? At a glance, there were at least tens of thousands of people present. You're all Gong Sunliang. Don't put on a noble face in front of me in the future. I'm disgusted. No one dared to provoke him. After expressing his disdain, Chu Yang went straight to sign up. Although the two old men didn't like Chu Yang, they didn't dare to violate the rules of the Sky Academy. They obediently recorded the names of Chu Yang, Scumbag Chu, and Cui Xinho and gave each of them a white jade token. Scumbag Chu was the parrot. His surname was Chu and his name was Scumbag. Quack, quack. The parrot flapped its wings and said goodbye to the people of the East Continent. Everyone, see you next time. Next time, you must give it your all. This divine bird has high hopes for you, waha. Chu Yang swaggered off, accompanied by the parrot's ridicule. The people from the Eastern Continent gnashed their teeth. If news of this were to spread, they would become the laughingstock of the entire Eastern Continent. They were even inferior to a wild dog. During the assessment, I will definitely let this wild dog know how powerful I am. Damn it! How could a wild dog be so arrogant in front of us? I must kill him even if he fails the test of the Sky Academy. If the wild dog doesn't die, we will never be able to wash away our shame. All the people from the eastern wasteland were filled with righteous indignation. Gong Sunliang, who was sitting on the ground, heard the crowd's words. His dead eyes suddenly came back to life. He gritted his teeth and roared in his heart, "Damn you, wild dog, if I, Gong Sun Liang, don't chop you into pieces, I swear I am not a man." Chu Yang knew what Gong Sun Liang and the others were thinking. Of course, he couldn't ignore them. After all, he didn't only have to deal with Gong Sun Liang, but also the whole Eastern continent. It's really exciting to fight against the whole Eastern continent alone. When Chu Yang thought of the Eastern wilderness, he couldn't help admiring him. It took a lot of courage to fight against the Eastern continent alone. Chu Yang didn't have much courage. He was just angry. If he didn't fight back, he would be aggrieved to death. Soon, they arrived at the designated location of the Sky Academy. There was a portal there, which transported them to a dimensional space for the assessment. The entrance assessment of the Sky Academy consisted of 9-dimensional secret realms. In each secret realm, those who participated in the Sky Academy's assessment had to fight. In the end, they would be admitted according to their accumulated points. Chapter 983. The minimum score to enter the Sky Academy was at least 10,000 points, and that was only for handyman students. The Sky Academy was an academy, but it had many similarities with sections. The students were divided into handyman students, outer court students, inner court students, elite students, and saints. Saints were the disciples of sages, but Chu Yang didn't know if there were any sages in the Sky Academy. The Sky Academy was divided into 2 areas, the sky and the ground. The Sky Academy on the ground was the Handyman Academy. Only the outer court students could enter the outer court of the Sky Academy. Only then could they enter the other area of the Sky Academy and enter the real Sky Academy. The Sky Academy on the sky was the real Sky Academy. The entrance examination of the Sky Academy was a way to raise poisonous insect. If you died, and you had nothing to say about it. After all, the Sky Academy had made it clear before. If you were afraid of being killed, you shouldn't participate in the examination of the Sky Academy. Chu Yang and the others waited for about 2 hours. With the arrival of the last batch of participants, nearly 200,000 people gathered in front of the portal. The scene was extremely spectacular. This was only the first batch of the examination. Because of the large number of participants, the Sky Academy had to divide the examination into several batches every time it recruited students. Every time, the examination would be divided into at least 3 batches. That was to say, the Sky Academy used at least 27-dimensional secret realms for the examination alone. 27-dimensional secret realms, which was unimaginable in the Eastern wilderness, but for the Sky Academy, each dimensional secret realm was just a classroom. While waiting, Chu Yang realized that many people were staring at him coldly. Everything that had happened previously had been revealed. After the 200,000 examinees gathered, almost all of their gazes were on Chu Yang and the others. Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing were almost trembling under the pressure of such a group, but they just held on. The parrot didn't dare to make a noise at this time. Otherwise, it would have used its beak to shoot at those who dared to besiege it like this. Even if Cui Xinho and the other 2 trembled, Chu Yang wouldn't blame them. What kind of concept was 200,000? Even if you firmly believed that you had the truth in your hands, under such pressure, you would definitely think that you were wrong. Being condemned by thousands and spurned by tens of thousands was definitely not a joke. Not everyone could endure it. Of course, Chu Yang was also under pressure. He was facing the Eastern wilderness alone. Now, it was no longer just empty words, but reality unfolding before his eyes. Even though he knew about the psychological effect of group pressure, he still couldn't control it. When he was in the Eastern Barren Territory, he had done many things like facing many people alone. However, how could it compare to this scene? The scene of 200,000 people was too big and too magnificent. It could be said that everyone in the East Continent was an enemy. Chu Yang used the cultivation of a 5th-grade array master in order to resist the pressure of such a group of people. Everything suddenly changed when the pressure of this group of 200,000 people came crashing down on him. It seemed that everything had turned into a kind of battle array, and had turned into a vast fluctuation of a battle array. At this moment, the entire world had turned into a huge array formation in his eyes, and he immediately resisted this psychological pressure. When he looked at the sea of people again, the moving heads made him suddenly feel that this was clearly a moving array seal. Many array seals had gathered together. 3 seals of heaven, earth, and man. Aren't these 200,000 people a great array formed by the man seals? At this moment, his heart was moved and he had a great realization. A thought even appeared in the depths of his heart. With the help of these 200,000 people, he could break through the barrier of a level 6 array master and advance to a level 6 array master. Chapter 984. Pup. After an unknown period of time, Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing started to tremble. Then, the spiritual fluctuation that was emitted from Chu Yang's body became more and more obvious. With his body as the center, a circle of ripples rippled out in the void. The 3 of them were completely shaken. Why isn't Chu Yang afraid? Why is he treating these 200,000 people like they're nothing? Even though he was surrounded by enemies, Chu Yang was not only able to remain calm and composed, he could even cultivate and gain great insight. They were all humans, but why was there such a difference between heaven and earth? Why couldn't they do the same? Even if they couldn't do what Chu Yang did, why would they be so afraid and tremble in fear? How could the people of the East Continent not look down on them? How could they not mock them? Only someone like Chu Yang could win respect, and even make the people of the East Continent revere him. And only someone like Chu Yang could dare to mock the people of the East Continent, humiliate them to the extreme, and do everything possible. At this moment, the fear in the hearts of these 3 people suddenly disappeared without a trace. When they looked at Chu Yang again, there was no longer any doubt from before, nor was there any sneer from before. Now they only had admiration and worship. Every person from the eastern wilderness was mocked and looked down upon in the East Continent. Every one of them was incomparably angry. But who could look down on everything like Chu Yang? The 3 of them were incomparably excited. Chu Yang could very well be the next eastern wilderness. The parrot seemed to understand why Chu Yang was the master, and why it was the lowly one, and why Chu Yang was always so heaven-defying. It really didn't know what Chu Yang was doing now, and what it was doing now. This imbecile really makes this divine bird feel inferior. What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? The parrot was angry at itself. These 2-legged maggots called it a dog, and it was actually afraid of them. It was a disgrace, a great disgrace, a black mark that would forever remain in its life. Bang! In a fit of anger, the parrot flapped its wings and said, "What are you looking at? Can you kill this divine bird with your eyes? You're all idiot. How can you think of killing with your eyes? It's really an eye-opener for this divine bird." It puffed up its chest and said excitedly, "So what if the whole world is our enemy? So what if the whole world is our enemy? Even if there are millions of people, we will still be like birds." Cui Xinho and the other 2 felt ashamed again. They were not even as good as one of Chu Yang's parrots. At least they did not have the courage to mock the countless people in the East Continent. 1. The parrot had infuriated the people from the East Continent, and many of them glared at it with killing intent. The parrot began to tremble, and fear welled up in its heart. However, it was at this point that Chu Yang's voice rang out. "Is little scum wrong?" At this moment, Chu Yang once again felt like a frog at the bottom of a well, as if he was trapped in a cage. He once again felt the barrier of the heavens. The barrier of the heavens of a 6th-level spell formation master. Everyone in the East Continent was his enemy, and under such terrifying pressure, he had a great enlightenment. The enlightenment of heaven and earth should not only be limited to various terrains and laws. There should be many other kinds, such as the more than 200,000 people in the East Continent. The laws of heaven and earth were difficult to find. Where could one go to comprehend them? This was Chu Yang's view. However, the laws of heaven and earth were everywhere. They existed in all terrains, in all kinds of formations, in all kinds of martial arts, in oneself, in other people, in all kinds of creatures, etc. The laws of heaven and earth were everywhere. Chapter 985. Buzz. With a soft sound, a barrier covered Little Bastard and Cui Xinho. This was the usage of the heavenly barrier. Since the heavenly barrier was difficult to break, it could naturally be used as a form of protection. Chu Yang's voice rang out once again. So what if the entire world is my enemy? So what if the entire world is my enemy? Even if there are millions of people, what can you do? Can you kill me with your gazes? If you can, then look. I'll let you look as much as you want. At this moment, Chu Yang's voice was a bit ethereal. It was as light as the clouds in the sky. He was thinking of how to break through the heavenly barrier with the help of the crowd. With his current understanding of arrays, it was still very difficult for him to break through the rank 6 heavenly barrier. Thus, his words were spoken casually. However, when it entered the ears of the people from the Eastern Continent, it was as if a needle had pierced into their hearts. Their voices were filled with disdain and contempt. Wild dog, I'll definitely tear you into pieces. A voice that was filled with anger and humiliation. Even their bodies were trembling. It was Gong Sun Liang that Chu Yang had humiliated. Gong Sun Liang, I'll wait for your revenge. However, I hope that you can use your full strength this time. Gong Sun. The parrot laughed out loud. Gong Sun Liang, the benefits of writing the name backwards are great. At the very least, your Gong Sun family wasn't exposed and completely humiliated. A large hand appeared behind the parrot and gave a thumbs up to Gong Sun Liang. Gong Sun Liang, this move of yours is amazing. Amazing, too amazing. This divine bird has already learned a move. I've decided to call myself Bird God from now on. Dog. Gong Sun Liang lost his composure and roared. However, no one laughed. This was the Eastern Continent's humiliation, a supreme humiliation. No matter how big of a crime Gong Sun Liang committed, no matter how stupid he was, it was impossible to erase the fact that Gong Sun Liang was from the Eastern Continent. Wild dog, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth just because you won once? A dog like you usually dies in an ugly manner. Within the crowd, a tall and handsome man stood out. He was at the peak of the spirit stage 9th level. Chu Yang closed his eyes and said, "Tell me your name, two-legged maggot. I'll teach you how to make maggots when I'm free." Humph! The tall and strong man said with a murderous aura, "Wild dog, remember, the one who kills the dog will be surnamed Dongfang and given name Jing. I will never change my name." I see. Chu Yang's eyes were still closed. While thinking about how to break through the barrier with the help of the enmity of the East Continent, he said, "I will change your surname. I think your surname is Jing Fangdong. Jing Fangdong is better." Wild dog. Dongfang Jing's killing intent gushed out. "I can't be bothered to waste my breath with you. Let's see if you can still be as sharp-tongued as you are now when death is near. Jing Fangdong, I can't help but praise you. You are very self-aware." Chu Yang didn't open his eyes from beginning to end. "Not to mention you, even if all of you from the East Continent were to join forces, you wouldn't be a match for me. My 3-character classic is the #1 scripture in the world." Ha ha! When Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing heard this, they couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sure enough, he was worthy of being the person they admired. His words were really good. The 3-character classic had become a supreme scripture. Waha! How could the parrot be inferior to Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Hao Haodong? It immediately laughed out loud and said, "There is no need for my lord to do anything. My three-character classic is invincible in the Eastern continent. I will destroy anyone that I see. I guarantee that I will make you feel good. I swear to the heavens. Chapter 986. Dongfang Zheng's killing intent grew stronger, and the anger of the people from the East continent surged. However, all of them restrained themselves. Once the test began and they entered the designated test mystic realm, it would be the time for these wild dogs to die. The scene fell silent. After waiting for a while, an old figure suddenly appeared in the air and said to Chu Yang and the others, "You from the barren village, do you already know the process of the test and many other things?" Chu Yang opened his eyes and looked at the old man in the air. He felt that the old man was unfathomable, so he said, "Please tell us more." Since the old man deliberately said so, there must be something important to explain. No matter how excellent your test results are, you can only enter the Sky Academy as a handyman student. Do you know that? Chu Yang couldn't help but look back at Cui Xinho and the others. When his sixth granduncle told him about the things to pay attention to in the Sky Academy's test, he didn't mention this. The three couldn't help nodding slightly. Cui Xinho secretly transmitted a voice to them. This is a new rule of the Sky Academy 10 years ago. The Patriarch is still in the dark and doesn't know about such a rule. 10 years ago, it meant that someone deliberately targeted him. Endless malice. In an instant, Chu Yang was furious. Discrimination. The East Continent discriminated against the people from the Eastern Wilderness. Sir, why does the Sky Academy have such a rule? Chu Yang held back his anger and asked. The old man looked at Chu Yang and said bluntly, "Because you are from the Eastern Wilderness. You are desolate men." Desolate men are not people? How noble can people from the East Continent be? The more Chu Yang thought about it, the angrier he became. He said again, "I don't know which senior from the East Continent made such a rule." Ha ha. The old man in the air was amused. He sneered and said, "Why? Do you want to ask this senior for advice?" "That's what I want." Chu Yang firmly suppressed the killing intent in his heart. He actually had to speak nicely to someone who despised him. He was so sullen that he almost wanted to die. However, he still didn't have the strength to kill this old dog and cut off its head. The old man sneered even more. "I can tell you that this is the rule set by the dean of our Sky Academy. You can ask him for advice." Ha ha! The people from the East Continent immediately burst into laughter. Their laughter resounded through the sky and spread far and wide. "Ridiculous, isn't it?" Chu Yang suddenly laughed. "There used to be a guy from the Eastern Wilderness who could force your Sky Academy to compromise and recruit students from the Eastern Wilderness. Do you think I can't do that?" He raised his hand and pointed at the sky. "I, Chu Yang, swear that I will definitely abolish this rule of the Sky Academy. If I can't do it, I'll never be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. I'll suffer the agony of the infernal hell, unable to beg for death." The oath was very grand. Although it was monotonous, it resounded through the whole place. At this moment, Cui Xinho and the other two admired Chu Yang even more. If everyone in the barren village had such courage as Chu Yang, they wouldn't have been looked down upon and called a wild dog or a mongrel. They also suddenly became hot-blooded and made the same oath as Chu Yang. The parrot didn't fall behind. Ha ha! After a moment of silence, the old man in the sky laughed. The people from the East Continent also burst into laughter. In their eyes, this was just a big joke. "Humph, laugh all you want." Chu Yang snorted. "I can tell you that no matter who is here this time, you can only enter the Sky Academy as a handyman student." After a pause, he said domineeringly, "Because if I don't allow it, you can't. Because if I don't allow it, you can't." Cui Xinho and the other two also roared. Even if they died because of this, they would be happy and energetic. As men, how could they not have any spirit and backbone in the world? "Those who humiliate me, I'll pay them back." Chu Yang looked at the old man in the sky and said again, "Sir, may I know your name? I'd like to learn from you tomorrow." The old man was stunned for a moment and then laughed loudly. "You're so arrogant. I'm Lu Yangxia. If you can do it, you can come to me tomorrow and make fun of me." "Lu Yangxia, Mr. Lu," Chu Yang said, "I'll remember you. I'll wait for your good news." After that, Lu Yangxia said to the audience, "Now the assessment begins." Chapter 987. The transmitting formation was very large, so it didn't take long for more than 200,000 people to be teleported and disappear. Chu Yang also entered the dimensional secret realm with Cui Xinho and the other two. As soon as they disappeared, 5 old men appeared beside Lu Yangxia. As soon as they appeared, one of them said with a smile, "Old Lu, I heard that this assessment is very interesting." The 5 old men were Ping Zimo, Ta Mingyuan, Dong Zisher, Guan Jianmen, and Lu Yangxia. They were responsible for the enrollment of the Sky Academy this time. Lu Yangxia nodded and said with a smile, "The guy named Chu Yang in the Eastern Wilderness swore that he would abolish the rule of the Academy. All people in the Eastern Wilderness can only be handyman students no matter how good their grades are." The more he thought about it, the funnier he felt. Then he said, "He even threatened to compete with our headmaster." Haha. In the end, Lu Yangxia couldn't help but laugh out loud. This was simply too funny for him. What kind of person was the master of the Sky Academy? People like Chu Yang would probably never see such a person in their entire lives, let alone argue with such a person. Haha. When the elders heard that Chu Yang was going to compete with the master of the Sky Academy, they couldn't help but laugh out loud. Thinking of Chu Yang, Lu Yangxia couldn't help but say, "The wild dog named Chu Yang also said that in this assessment, no one in the East Continent can become an outer academy student or an inner academy student. All of them can only be handyman students like him. He is very arrogant." He imitated Chu Yang's voice and said passionately, "If I don't allow it, you can't." Haha. Although the 5 old men shouldn't be so arrogant, the wild dog was not a junior, so they could laugh at him wantonly. Besides, it was too ridiculous for them. How dare a wild dog say that if I don't allow it, you can't? There were more than 200,000 people in the East Continent, all of whom were incompetent. It was too easy for them to deal with a few wild dog. However, that wild dog called Chu Yang is indeed extraordinary. This was an old man called Ping Zimo. He and Guan Jianmen were in charge of the enrollment area, so they had some understanding of Chu Yang. Guan Jianmen nodded his head and said, "Indeed. Gongsun Liang from the Gongsun family is at the 5th level of the spirit realm. His cultivation is much higher than the wild dog. However, even after using all of his strength, he was still unable to make the wild dog kneel. This wild dog does have the qualifications to be arrogant. If it wasn't one of the more outstanding wild dog, it wouldn't have dared to bark here." Lu Yangxia smiled and said, "But that's all there is to it. Not to mention the others, the 200,000 people from the East Continent who are participating in the assessment can drown them with just a spit of saliva from each of them. The so-called, 'you can't do it because I don't allow it' is just a big joke." Naturally, Chu Yang didn't know about the ridicule of the 5 people. After he led Cui Xinho and the other 2 into the first dimensional secret realm, they ran into trouble. Although the teleportation array had spread the 200,000 people evenly throughout the dimensional secret realm, there were still many people from the East Continent at the spot where they appeared, and they were immediately sent back to where they came from. When Chu Yang came into contact with them, he immediately used his speed to get rid of them. He then went to the edge of the dimensional secret realm to study the array that was arranged in the entire dimensional secret realm. The array in the dimensional secret realm could monitor the entire dimensional secret realm. 9 dimensional secret realms, 9 arrays. Apart from monitoring the entire dimensional secret realm, These arrays could also be activated at any time to deal with the situation within the dimensional secret realm. Before coming here, the sixth granduncle had already told Chu Yang about this. The reason why Chu Yang dared to say, "You can't do it because I don't allow it," was because of the array. Chapter 988. This was not Chu Yang's original idea. He already had this idea before he came to the Sky Academy. The reason was, of course, that the East Continent was against him. In the past, as long as the village participated in the Sky Academy examination, they would be targeted and besieged by the East Continent. They would either be killed directly or humiliated to the extreme. Chu Yang certainly did not think that he was special, nor did he think that he was lucky. When he participated in the test of the Sky Academy, the situation would be different. The people of the East Continent would never target him, nor could they target him. Of course, he did not want to be humiliated or even killed. Therefore, before he came, he found that there was only one way to pass the test of the Sky Academy: the formation. After entering the secret realm, Cui Xinho and the other two were curious about how to deal with the encirclement of the people of the East Continent. When they saw Chu Yang studying the formation in the secret realm, they were finally sure of Chu Yang's plan. Formation. It was not that there were no formation masters in the East Continent. In fact, there were more formation masters in the East Continent than in the Eastern Wilderness, and they were more brilliant than in the Eastern Wilderness. However, why did the formation masters of the East Continent not dare to do this? Because it was impossible. The entire array formation in the secret realm was like a country, and every node was a city. There were armies stationed there, armored soldiers patrolling and guarding, and even generals and city lords standing guard. Even if one managed to infiltrate the secret realm, they would not be able to stay for long. They would definitely be discovered and eliminated. Therefore, in the end, his efforts would be in vain and in vain. Such things had happened before, and they had learned a painful lesson. Therefore, they did not dare to do this again. The three of them had never expected that Chu Yang would try a method that had been proven to be impossible. However, they did not say anything because this was the only way. Otherwise, they would be humiliated and killed by the encirclement of so many people from the East Continent. Moreover, if the formation masters of the East Continent could not do it, Chu Yang could. Chu Yang was now an admirer of all three of them. Soon, the three of them found that Chu Yang was very experienced in invading other people's formations. His movements were very skillful, and their eyes lit up. Darkness invasion. The three of them could only conclude the entire process like this. They saw Chu Yang's dark true essence endlessly pour into a node of the array formation. His dark true essence was like the darkness of the night, silently invading every corner of the array formation. When the controller of the formation sensed the abnormality, it was as if dawn had arrived. When the light came, the darkness naturally retreated. Chu Yang also retreated with the darkness and hid. He did not arouse any suspicion at all. He blended perfectly with the darkness, as if he was the darkness itself and represented the darkness itself. This was only the most basic. If each formation node was a city, and there were armored soldiers patrolling and guarding it, then it would be very difficult to infiltrate the city without being discovered. However, Chu Yang did it with ease. It was as if he had released many ghosts from the darkness, silently invading the consciousness of the general stationed in the city. He controlled him without making a sound and gave orders through him. What Chu Yang had displayed had completely shocked Cui Xinho and the other two. This method shocked them to the core. I thought the formation of the East Continent would be amazing. Isn't it also bullshit, full of flaws? Chu Yang's sinister laughter suddenly made Cui Xinho and the other two people who had sunk into a deep shock. They couldn't help but stare blankly. From Chu Yang's voice, they could tell that Chu Yang was definitely a repeat offender. Chapter 989. With the help of the celestial demon Martial Soul, the various array seals in the array formation were instantly analyzed by Chu Yang. Chu Yang was also very good at soul technique. The soul-devouring gourd, detention gourd, and soul-severing gourd weren't used because they couldn't alarm the other party. However, the soul-snatching technique that Chu Yang had obtained on Emperor Island was very useful. Just like how Slave One had silently infiltrated other people's souls and controlled them, Chu Yang quickly occupied the first array formation node. Then, using his identity as the array formation node, he made each array formation node acknowledge him and occupied them one by one. Like a rolling snowball, Chu Yang invaded the entire array formation faster and faster. After a while, he said, "Let's go. It's time for us to collect the toll." Chu Yang led Cui Xinhou and the other two directly into the array formation node. The dimensional secret territory was very big, and the entire array formation was huge. Each node was a teleportation array. Following the array formation's passageway, one could easily reach every corner of the dimensional secret territory. Chu Yang's target was the intersection between the array formations of the first and second dimensional secret territory. All the candidates would have to pass through this node to enter the second dimensional secret territory and participate in the second round of assessment. The first round of assessment wouldn't end so quickly. The candidates had to hunt the demonic beasts in the secret territory, search for natural treasures, and pass the tests set up in the secret territory to earn points. During this period, the candidates had to fight and kill each other. This made the entire assessment bloody and long. As a result, Chu Yang had the time to invade the second and third dimensional secret territory. Naturally, he was worried that he would be noticed by the Invigilator after he attacked through the array formation in the first dimensional secret territory. Therefore, Chu Yang made preparations in advance. Chu Yang didn't stop. He invaded one array formation after another. After invading all 9 array formations, he returned with an exhausted look on his face. Even though his mind power was extremely strong, invading 9 large arrays at once consumed a lot of energy. Of course, he didn't have the ability to control these 9 large arrays. He just stole part of the control. The 3 of you, listen up. If someone comes later, shout the slogan first. Chu Yang was originally extremely tired, but Cui Xinhou and the other 2 noticed that when he talked about this matter, he immediately became spirited. He said excitedly, "The slogan should be like this: the secret realm is my home. Unity and friendship depend on everyone. If you want my friendship, hand over your points." Yes, that's right. Chu Yang felt that the slogan was quite smooth, so he immediately slapped the table and said, "That's it. The 3 of you go first." Cui Xinhou, Hao Haodong, and Olajing were immediately put in a difficult position. They had come to participate in the Sky Trial, not to be bandit. Also, when had this place become their home? However, the 3 of them had no choice but to do as they were told. They shouted, "The arcane realm is my home. Unity and friendship depend on everyone. If you want my friendship, hand over your points." What the hell is wrong with you? You're robbing the 2-legged maggots of the eastern wilderness, and yet you still have such a guilty conscience? Has your conscience been eaten by dogs? Chu Yang was furious when he saw the 3 of them acting coy. Weren't they saying that he was a bad person right in front of his face? Caw caw. The parrot immediately laughed loudly. "My master, leave this task to me. I'm the best at this kind of thing. As for these 3 bad kids, I swear on my bird status that they will definitely embarrass you, my master." The parrot's disdain made the 3 of them blush. They actually had a problem robbing the 2-legged maggots of the eastern continent. They felt like they should be struck by lightning, especially when they thought about the humiliation they had suffered when they had come to participate in the Sky Trial. Their companions had died tragically, and their eyes had turned red. "Don't worry, Master of the Eastern Wilderness. Even if the 3 of us are worse than pigs and dogs, We definitely won't embarrass you or the entire eastern wilderness. The three of them now respectfully referred to Chu Yang as master of the eastern wilderness to show their respect. Hee, that's right. If you're shameless, you have to be completely shameless. Don't suddenly stop halfway. This is good. For example, when you're halfway through using force on a girl, you suddenly come to your senses. That's also a crime. If you're unhappy, the girl won't necessarily appreciate it, right? Chu Yang wasn't satisfied, and continued to lead the good kids astray. When it comes to chasing girls, we have to be different from the rest. We don't take the usual path, just like this trial. You have to remember the Lord's teachings. Chapter 990. Time passed silently. Chu Yang woke up from his meditation. When he was full of energy again, he found that little fish and little cat had not arrived. He was immediately displeased. After he shouted at the entire dimensional secret realm, he shouted, "I say, you two-legged maggots of the East Continent, do you have any concept of time? Don't you know that wasting other people's time is equivalent to murder?" His voice resounded in the empty space and spread far and wide. Cui Xinho and the other two were dumbfounded. How could a robber be so righteous? Clap, clap, clap. The three of them were immediately hit on the head by Chu Yang. Chu Yang lectured them. "What's going on with you three? Why is it so slow to change your mindset? The other party called you wild dogs. He made you wait for so long. Isn't that a crime?" The three could only come to a sudden realization, as if they had just woken up from a dream. Quack, quack, master is coming. The cute points are coming. At this time, the parrot laughed strangely. Following the parrot's gaze, Chu Yang looked over and saw a dozen people flying towards them. Hee, they're finally here. Chu Yang rubbed his palms together. He looked at the dozen or so people as if he were looking at cute points. Then, he said to the parrot, "Get ready, you little bastard. You're going to teach us three naughty children who haven't seen the world a lesson. Tell them what it means to say that this road was opened by me, and this tree was planted by me." "All right, master, just wait and see." The parrot was completely excited and laughed strangely. Swish, swish, swish. The group of people arrived in front of Chu Yang in an instant. The person in the lead had a pair of peach blossom eyes and a slender figure. It could be said that he was a handsome man and a pretty boy. I was wondering whose laughter was so unpleasant. It turns out that it's these mongrels. No wonder. As soon as the handsome man with peach blossom eyes spoke, the people behind him began to speak. "Ignorant wild dog, they dare not run when they see us. Let's get rid of them and show them the nobility of the East Continent. Killing them can be considered as getting rid of evil for the East Continent. Unfortunately, they're just a few wild dogs. They won't be famous. Don't worry, it won't take much effort. It's just a few wild dogs." Hearing this, Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing were no longer good kids. They didn't care about being shameless anymore. They roared. "Two-legged maggots of the East Continent, stand firm. Listen up, the mystic realm is my home. Unity and friendship depend on everyone. If you want my friendship, call out your point." The people from the East Continent were stunned for 3 seconds as if they had been struck by lightning. Then, ha. He laughed so hard that his stomach hurt and his face hurt. He laughed so hard that his face and stomach hurt. "Haha, what did I just hear? The secret realm is my home. Unity and friendship depend on everyone. If you want my friendship, call out your point." Haha, I'm dying of laughter. Wild dog is really funny. Ouch, my stomach. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life, haha. They all laughed like crazy, making Cui Xinho and the other two blush. The handsome man with peach blossom eyes laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. Chu Yang's lips curled into a smile. He said, "You guessed right. I want you to die of laughter so that I can inherit your points." When the parrot heard this, its eyes lit up. This was a classic. It wanted to take a pen and record Chu Yang's famous word. Master, when you open your mouth, I feel like the whole world is full of female parrots. Go away, go away, Chu Yang said with disdain. Female parrots are your hobby, but please don't link me to them and make them misunderstand. Chu Yang and the parrot echoed each other. Cui Xinho and the other two were immediately ashamed. Let's see how they deal with this. Chapter 991. The pretty boy with peach blossom eyes soon stopped smiling. They despised Chu Yang, but Chu Yang despised them even more. Wild dog, I'll also give you a chance to change my surname and name. Grandpa, I'm Gu Yiwen. As soon as the peach-eyed gigolo spoke, the people behind him also clamored. Grandpa, I'm Lu Anji. Grandpa, I'm Jiao Haobua. Grandpa, I'm Ba Honglang. Behind them, Gu Yiwen clenched his fists and stared at Chu Yang with a smile. Wild dog, how do you want to die? Good grandson, come to Grandpa. Grandpa will give you some candy. Chu Yang crooked his finger at Gu Yiwen. His expression was extremely contemptuous. He really looked like an old man teasing a little child. Humph! Gu Yiwen sneered. He waved his hand and ordered the people behind him. All of you, don't do anything. I'd like to see how this wild dog will be my grandpa. Bang! Then, he stomped on the ground as soon as he finished speaking. The ground split open, and cracks appeared like a spider web. Then, he flew towards Chu Yang like a bolt of lightning with a sonic boom. He was really like a bolt of lightning, and the sonic boom was like rolling thunder. His momentum was unparalleled, and he became the most dazzling star in the world, stealing everyone's attention. Bang! However, the awe-inspiring Gu Yiwen suddenly bounced back like a bird hitting a mountain, and fell to the ground. With a bang, smoke and dust rose into the sky, and the ground under his feet shook violently. After a while, in a pit, the awe-inspiring Gu Yiwen was spasming and groaning. Just now, he exploded with a speed so fast that he suddenly hit the wall formed by the formation. The recoil was so great that his bones and tendons were broken. The formation in the entire dimensional secret realm was so vast that even Chu Yang couldn't occupy it. He could only occupy the most important node. Thus, it wasn't hard to imagine how firm the formation was. At this moment, Chu Yang began to comment, "The pit is a bit small. You're at the peak of spirit stage 9th stage, yet you created such a small pit. Don't you think that it's too embarrassing?" At the same time, he was also shocked. The East continent was indeed firm. If it was the eastern wilderness, it would definitely create a huge pit. Also, you didn't pretend to be pitiful enough, so Grandpa can't give you candy. Chu Yang shook his head at Gu Yiwen, who was in the pit. You've disappointed Grandpa too much. You can't even be a brat. The rest of the people from the East continent didn't react at all. They still hadn't figured out what was going on. Chu Yang smiled. Hey, come back to your senses. Also, he looked at Cui Xinho and the other two. The three of them understood and immediately roared, "The dimensional secret realm is my home. Unity and friendship rely on everyone. If you want me to show friendship, then hand over your points." Everyone, did you hear that? Chu Yang's actions had thoroughly enraged the people from the East continent. They moved in unison, pressing towards Chu Yang and the others step by step. Be careful. There's something strange about this wild dog. Remember, everyone should take care of each other. If you notice anything strange, everyone must remind each other. As long as we have a plan, this wild dog won't be able to be so arrogant. The group of people reminded each other and cautiously approached Chu Yang. Gu Yiwen's actions just now had given them a warning. When they were only half a meter away from Chu Yang, they were all blocked by an invisible wall. No matter how they bombarded it, they were unable to break this layer of wall. This is an array wall. It's at least a rank 7 array wall. We can't break it. How is this possible? How can this wild dog be a rank 7 array master? He must have borrowed the power of the dimensional secret realms array. Chapter 992. Clap, clap. Chu Yang applauded. You're right, but you won't get a prize. After a pause, he smirked and said, Also, come and bite me. The people from the East Continent were furious. They gritted their teeth and taunted, Wild dog, what kind of skill is that? Fight me if you have the guts. I guarantee you'll be looking for your teeth on the ground. Wild dog, I only need one hand. I can crush you with one hand. One hand is too much. I can kill him with one finger. Chu Yang smirked and said, That's a low-level provocation. You can provoke a 7 or 8-year-old child. I guarantee you that he'll piss on your faces. Also, you're so close to me. Don't you see how beautiful I am? The parrot was puzzled. Master, what's beautiful about you? The aesthetics of violence. Rumble. It was as if the sky had collapsed. The people from the East Continent suddenly felt as if the sky had collapsed. An invisible wall fell down, heavier than a mountain. Immediately, they cried for their parents as they were smashed to the ground. They were too close to the nodes of the matrix. The nodes of the matrix were an energy source. The closer they were to the nodes, the more astonishing the power would be when Chu Yang activated the matrix. Just like a moment ago, when the matrix wall fell down on them, it was as if a big hand of the heavens had slapped down on them. All of them were seriously injured, and were smashed into the ground. Time to work. Chu Yang waved his hand. Cui Xinho and the other two quickly robbed them of their point. In order to give them a good memory, let's move on to the next step. Chu Yang ordered the three of them. Strip them naked and hang them up to dry. After that, Chu Yang stretched comfortably. It's nice to have someone to pluck my hair for me. Gu Yiwen and the people from the East Continent felt like they were about to faint. However, no matter how much they begged for mercy, Chu Yang ignored them. Cui Xinho and the other two shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They had become professional pluckers? However, they could only get to work. After plucking for a while, they felt that it really was a bit tiring, so they immediately used their spiritual energy to form blades to scrape the fur. However, they were immediately criticized. Plucking hair, what do you mean by plucking hair? You live two-legged maggots, don't you get blood when you pluck hair? Chu Yang glared at him, and the three of them could only continue to use force, causing the group of people to scream again and again. Ga. The parrot laughed heartily, and then began to flatter Chu Yang. Master, you've brought the traditional virtues of stripping naked and hanging them up to dry in the eastern wilderness. You've already brought them to the eastern wilderness, and you've already promoted them. Little bastard, you're absolutely right. Chu Yang was full of praises. Then, he said, Little bitch, you have to do your part to promote the traditional virtues of the eastern wilderness. Go, join the plucking army. The parrot wanted to cry. This master was too difficult to serve. There was actually such a huge risk in sucking up to him. There was no justice in this world. Being in the king's company is like being in the company of a tiger, not to mention being in the company of a wicked man. This profession is really too dangerous. The parrot learned its lesson through blood and tears and began to pluck the fur. It wasn't long before Gu Yiwen and the others were all stripped naked and hung up to dry in the sun, and a beautiful scene was impressively formed. After an unknown amount of time, the assessment of the first-dimensional secret realm was nearing its end. More and more people moved to the second-dimensional secret realm. When they arrived and saw the beautiful scenery, they were all stunned. Among them, there were girls who suddenly saw the beautiful scenery. Their screams instantly pierced everyone's eardrums. Tch. After the girl screamed, Chu Yang's voice rang out. You've already seen it. Why are you still covering your eyes? What's the difference? Your eyes have long been tainted, so why are you still pretending to be decent? What's the big deal? Yi Qingtang said. Shameless. Bastard. Shameless. Wild dog, you'll die a horrible death. Cold rebukes filled with murderous intent came from all directions. Chu Yang smiled and said, "You're just two-legged female maggots. Do I think you're human or women? Why don't you take a look at your own status? Do you have the right to call me a shameless bastard? You don't know what you're talking about." One could imagine the anger of the people of the East Continent. As more and more people gathered, almost all the participants of the assessment had gathered. Chu Yang cleared his throat and began to speak. "Disrespectful male maggots and female maggots, hello. Welcome to this humble one's landscape manor." He instantly turned into a tour guide and salesman. "I can guarantee that you won't be disappointed during this sightseeing and tour. You'll return satisfied because the scenery here is unique." Chapter 993. It was such a beautiful scene that the people of the East Continent were almost blinded by it. In an instant, fire could be seen in their eyes. It seemed as if they couldn't wait to swallow Chu Yang alive. If looks could kill, then Chu Yang would have died 108,000 times already. Ga. The parrot let out a strange laugh and used Chu Yang's famous saying to mock the group, "Come on, come and bite me to death. I like you guys like this. You can't wait to eat me, but you can't kill me. Waha." Smack. The parrot was hit on the head by Chu Yang. "Little bastard, how can you do business like this? That's not anger, that's passion burning like fire." Chu Yang opened his arms and made a welcoming gesture. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this humble one's manor for sightseeing and enjoying the scenery. I can see your passion, but please don't be anxious. This manor will be opened immediately." The second test's dimensional secret realm had now become Chu Yang's manor and back garden. "Wild dog, you won't die if you don't seek death. You're simply digging your own grave." A person in the crowd sneered. When Chu Yang looked over, he was immediately delighted. "Oh my, isn't this the familiar maggot? Jingfangdong, I promise to give you a discount later. I guarantee that you'll be satisfied. I'll definitely come again next time." Old maggot? What the hell was that? Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing thought for a while before they realized that the old maggot was actually an old acquaintance. In Chu Yang's eyes, the people of the East Continent were not people, but maggots. "Wild dog, the more arrogant you are now, the more miserable your death will be. I've never seen someone as stupid as you to offend so many people at the same time and become the public enemy." Wasn't he already the public enemy? Chu Yang heard this and sneered in his heart. When he saw the person who spoke, he shouted in surprise, "Oh, it's old maggot again." In Eunuch Sun's words, "You no longer feel humiliated," and crawled out of the crevice in the ground. "You're such a good person, forgetful and forgetful. You don't have to worry about anything, you don't have to humiliate yourself." Gong Sun Liang's face twisted and became ferocious. Chu Yang focused on opening his bloody wounds. "Wild dog, you are too presumptuous. This is not your doghouse in the eastern wilderness. This is the East Continent. Is the East Continent a place for you to behave atrociously? You better know your place and get out of the way. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." "Wild dog, do you know what it means to beg for death?" The people from the East Continent were aggressive. Their words were either humiliating or threatening. Every one of them was extremely arrogant. They indeed had the capital to do so. If they were to gang up on him after the assessment, Chu Yang would be in a very bad situation. However, did Chu Yang care about this? If he was discriminated against and targeted by the East Continent, he would not be able to live a peaceful life in the Sky Academy. He was ready, so now he had to do something. At this time, Chu Yang sensed a great spiritual fluctuation in the array formation. About 70 to 80 spiritual consciousnesses tried to invade the array formation, and tried to occupy the nodes of the array formation. But in the end, only 5 or 6 people successfully invaded the array formation, and tried to snatch the nodes that Chu Yang occupied. These two-legged maggots, this is a premeditated rebellion. Ha ha! Chu Yang laughed and immediately launched his attack. Soul Slash. Soul Devour. Soul Capture. The three profound meanings in the reincarnation gourd were displayed at the same time. In an instant, screams were heard. In addition, several spiritual marks appeared in Chu Yang's hands, which were obtained from detaining and devouring. Chapter 994. Today, I picked up 2 cents on the roadside. Chu Yang began to hum, but he forgot the rest of the song. He held the spiritual imprint in his hand and shouted, "A good person does a good deed and doesn't pocket the money he picked up. Owner, please claim the lost property. Remember to bring a silk banner, or people will know that I didn't pocket the money I picked up. In this world, good people need to be promoted." It was just a few spiritual imprints, but Chu Yang was almost playing with flowers. The people of the East Continent were angry and aggrieved. "Hey, praise me, or I won't pocket the money I picked up next time." When he spoke again, not to mention the people of the East Continent, even Cui Xinho and the other 2 felt that he had gone too far. Alas! Facing the murderous gazes of the people from the East Continent, Chu Yang sighed and said sadly, "What's wrong with this world? Why are good people doing good deeds and returning the money they picked up? Why do people look at me with such disdain? It's like they're looking at a fool. I can't understand." After a pause, he was filled with righteous indignation. "Buddha said that if I don't go to hell, who will? Therefore, in order to save the world, I've decided that from now on, I'll face the sea and be a fool. Therefore, my manor will be opened in advance. Little bitch is open for business." How? Finally, it was the parrot's turn to show off. It was so excited that it howled and said, "Everyone, the Lord's manor is so sacred that you can't bring in worldly things. Therefore, you need to hand over all your property to me for safekeeping before you can enter." The people of the East Continent instantly understood that Chu Yang was going to rob them of all their points and make them leave with nothing. Then, they would enter the second-dimensional secret realm for the assessment. This was simply crazy. In the history of the Sky Academy, such a thing had never happened. For a moment, the people of the East Continent were cursing, but no one dared to compromise because the other party was a wild dog. If they compromised, they would be stabbed in the back. The parrot began to teach them, "You 2-legged maggots, the time you've wasted is enough for you to make up for your losses in the second secret realm. You can imagine what kind of scene it would be without competition, and how bright the future would be." After a while, there was finally a commotion among the people of the East Continent. One of them laughed and said, "What the divine bird said is indeed from the bottom of his heart. I want to go sightseeing in the Lord's manor. I hope the divine bird can get rid of the vulgarity on me so that I won't dirty the Lord's manor." While they were speaking, a young man in his mid-20s walked over with an oily face. There was a lot of oil on his face, and his glib tongue made him look like a scoundrel. When he walked toward Chu Yang, the people of the East Continent cursed him angrily. "This is a disgrace to the East Continent. How can there be such a despicable person in the East Continent? How dare you kneel and lick the wild dog's boots? Aren't you afraid that your ancestors will be scolded? He's even more despicable than wild dog. He's a disgrace to all of us from the East Continent." However, that person was still grinning from ear to ear. He even turned around and smiled mockingly at the crowd. It was as if he was mocking them for being fools. "Amitba. The Lord gives you glory. The Lord gives you courage." While the parrot was encouraging him, Juan handed over his points and allowed him to enter the second secret realm. It did take courage to do so. Therefore, Chu Yang was very concerned about that person. After all, it was only his first business. How could he not be concerned? Don't be shy. Don't feel burdened. The Lord will make you innocent and give you glory. The parrot continued to shout, "My mother said that I'm a student of the Sky Academy, but the one next door isn't. The one next door won't be able to hold his head up high. Are you all going to be the one who can't hold his head up high? Suddenly, the smug parrot found that the eyes and attention of the crowd were not on it. It looked over and saw that the oily man had come back. Chapter 995. Master, the parrot screamed in panic. In an instant, the sound wave from its mouth seemed to be like a sharp sword. Chu Yang couldn't help but twitch his ears. Little bitch, why are you panicking? Don't you know that 0.01 millimeters is also a safe distance? Boom. The oily youth thought that he had succeeded. His face was full of complacency. A contemptuous sneer hung on the corner of his mouth. He raised his fist and smashed it towards Chu Yang's head. Buzz. There was a buzzing sound in the air. The oily young man didn't hold back and punched with all his strength. His fist rubbed against the air and formed an arc of light. Then, a scream was heard. The oily young man was about to smash Chu Yang's head. However, a thin array wall suddenly appeared behind Chu Yang's head. A sword tip emerged from the array wall and met the fist. The sword tip that emerged from the array wall seemed thin and fragile. However, when the fist hit the oily young man's arm, it was like a sword returning to its sheath. His entire arm was directly penetrated. His face was twisted in pain and his body was convulsing. Playing tricks in front of your ancestor. Naive. Chu Yang looked at him with disdain. Then, with a thought, countless hands appeared on the array wall and beat the oily young man until he couldn't take care of himself. Then, they stripped him naked and hung him up to dry. Everyone, the game has officially begun. Chu Yang pointed at Gongsun Liang and said with an evil smile, "Strip Gongsun Liang naked and hang him up to dry. Then, he can enter the second secret realm unconditionally." At first, no one moved, but suddenly, a few people came out and ambushed Liang Sun Gong, beating him up. Then, they stripped him naked and hung him up to dry. After that, these people successfully entered the second secret realm and started the next round of tests. Next, it's Jing Dong. Chu Yang smiled evilly again. Let me remind you that if you're fast, you'll get something. If you're slow, you won't get anything. Everyone, hurry up. Dongfang Jing was terrified and shouted angrily, "Let's see who dares." Bang bang bang. What responded to him was countless fists. He was immediately drowned by the crowd, beaten until he was deformed. He was stripped naked and hung up to dry. Chu Yang quickly moved on to the next round. Everyone, there's not much time left. I'm sorry to inform you that I didn't remember many of the names of the people I dislike. This is the last round. As long as you are an array master, you will be rewarded. The crowd was in an uproar. Then, nearly 300 array masters were stripped naked and hung up to dry. The Sky Academy's assessment was originally cruel, so it was not strange for it to be like this. Moreover, the human heart had always been difficult to predict. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many things happening in this world. Alright, everyone, the time for distributing benefits is now over. Chu Yang looked at the people of the East Continent with a smile and said, "I will only collect a few 100,000 points. As for the specific number, it depends on my mood. Once the number is met, I will immediately cut off the formation. So, everyone, pay attention. Let's begin. I'm willing to hand over my points. I'm willing." However, even more people did not make a sound. They directly rushed over, handed over their points, and entered the second-dimensional secret realm. Suddenly, the crowd was in chaos and scrambled to be the first. If they could not enter the second assessment, they could forget about becoming a student of the Sky Academy. Soon, Parrot and Chui Xinho were so busy that they almost vomited blood. The people of the East Continent seemed to be in a hurry to be reincarnated. The scene was so picturesque that Chu Yang could not help but sing. This is our anniversary, commemorating that we started to be honest with our points. This is a beautiful anniversary, commemorating the first robbery in the East Continent. The scene was even more beautiful. Cui Xinho and the other two were the same. There was no doubt that they were all smiling. The people of the Eastern Wilderness had always been bullied and humiliated. They had never been as happy as they were today. They did not collect points from anyone they did not like, which made the people of the East Continent flatter them shamelessly. It was so satisfying. The people of the East Continent flattered them. In the past, the three of them did not even dare to think about it. Now they were numb to it. This is a beautiful anniversary. Chapter 996. This is our anniversary, commemorating the fact that we began to be honest with ourselves and were willing to give up our pride for the people we love. This is a beautiful anniversary, commemorating the fact that we can get to know each other again. Some things can only be seen through tears. Chu Yang sang loudly and the lyrics returned to normal. He felt that he sang well. However, everyone who passed the test in the East Continent could not help but grit their teeth. They did give up their pride, but it was definitely not for the people they loved. The shame. They were indeed about to cry. The points that they worked so hard to earn were taken away just like that, a grieve. When all this happened in the first-dimensional secret realm, the 5 elders of the Sky Academy, Ping Zimo, Ta Mingyuan, Dong Zisher, Guan Jianmin, and Lu Yangxia, were paying attention to the points of the candidates after the first stage of the test. They only paid attention to the top 100. In the air, there was an illusory jade token that was the most eye-catching. After seeing it, Lu Yangxia could not help but nod. 13,000 points. This Wang Shuang is good. If he doesn't snatch from each secret realm, he can get 1,000 points at most. He should be very strong. He must have snatched at least 10 people. Ping Zimo said, I'm afraid it's far more than that. Not everyone can get 1,000 points in the test. 10,000 points. This Ding Xingye is also a good seedling. After the test, it won't be a problem for him to enter the inner yard. Li Junjie, 9,000 points. His strength is also extraordinary. It seems that these 3 should be the strongest in this test. The jade tokens of these 3 people were the most eye-catching. If I don't allow it, you can't. The elder Guan Jianmin suddenly said with a smile, Look at this wild dog named Chu Yang. How many points has he got so far? Lu Yangxia nodded and said with a smile, That's right. This wild dog wants to learn from the dean. We have to pay attention to him no matter what. The 5 people immediately laughed. The elder Dong Zisher said, I'm afraid that he has been killed long ago. His jade token is broken and we can't find it. If that's the case, then these children are too immature. They don't know how to leave some fun for us old fellows. Lu Yangxia had a smile on her face, but suddenly she couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Hey, why did Wang Shuang's jade token suddenly dim? Could it be that he met someone stronger and was robbed? The other 4 couldn't help but look over. They found that Wang Shuang's jade token had completely dimmed, and his points had fallen to 0. Ding Xingye's jade tablet has also dimmed. The 5 of them then noticed that Ding Xingye, who had obtained 10,000 points, had his jade token completely returned to 0, dimmed and fell to the ground. After him, Li Junjie, who had obtained 9,000 points, had his jade tablet returned to 0. It also dimmed and fell down. It seems that we 5 old things are blind and spoke too early. Not bad, the seedlings in this assessment are not ordinary. Let's see which 3 people stole their points. The 5 of them smiled even more brightly. It was naturally a good thing that there were good seedlings. Soon, they found that among the many jade tokens there were 4 jade tokens that were like 4 big suns in the sky. They were very dazzling and their points kept soaring. Hiss! The 5 of them took a look and immediately couldn't help but gasp. Who is this Hao Haodong? Why is he so amazing? It's just the first round and he has obtained 50,000 points. This is simply unimaginable. That jade token is even more dazzling. As soon as they finished speaking, someone immediately exclaimed, "Oh my God, little bitch Chu has 80,000 points. The other two are also amazing. Cui Xinho has 60,000 points and Olajing has 50,000 points. Investigate, we must find these 4 people. These 4 are definitely supreme geniuses." Chapter 997. They continued reading. 60,000 points, Cui Xinho from the Eastern Wilderness. 50,000 points, Hao from the Eastern Wilderness. 50,000 points, Olajing from the Eastern Wilderness. The Eastern Wilderness belongs to the Eastern Wilderness. How is this possible? How is this possible? The 5 of them were all stunned. This was simply a shocking anecdote. According to this reasoning, didn't it mean that the 4 people in the Eastern Wilderness had defeated a large number of people in the East Continent? But was this possible? There were more than 200,000 people in the East Continent. No matter how powerful the 4 people in the Eastern Wilderness were, how could they be a match for them? Just as they were in disbelief, the many jade plates in the air quickly dimmed. Then, in an instant, the jade plates fell like rain. After a while, there were only 4 jade plates in the air. They were as dazzling as 4 big suns. One of the jade plates lit up. It's rising faster. It's 100,000 points. This time, it must belong to the East Continent. The wild dog in the Eastern Wilderness must have used some despicable means. But as long as there's one person in the East Continent, they won't succeed. The 5 of them hurriedly checked the jade plates. However, when they suddenly looked at it, their swift movements immediately froze. Their eyes protruded, and their mouths were so wide open that they seemed to be able to swallow the entire Sky Academy in one bite. What did they see? Chu Yang, who threatened to abolish the Sky Academy and discriminate against the Eastern Wilderness, and who wanted to ask the Dean of the Sky Academy for advice. Chu Yang, who said that if he didn't allow it, he couldn't do it. What the hell is going on? How could this be? Hurry up and check the situation in the dimensional secret realm. This may become a disgrace to the East Continent. This is simply going to make people laugh their heads off. If the wild dogs knew about this, that the 200,000 people in the East Continent were not even as good as 4 wild dogs, they would really despise us instead. Damn it! The 5 of them hurriedly took out a mirror and shone it at Chu Yang's jade plate. The scene of Chu Yang and the others in the dimensional secret realm immediately appeared in the mirror. They immediately flew into a rage. Bastard! He's cheating! How dare he! In the mirror, as soon as the 5 of them saw the beautiful scenery, their vision went dark. On the other hand, the people from the East Continent were like souls who were going to be judged by the King of Hell and then reincarnated. They were fighting to be the first to pass the checkpoint. Their heads hurt and they felt dizzy. Many people from the East Continent felt so helpless and aggrieved that they almost died. The 5 of them turned pale and their bodies trembled with anger. Especially when they saw Chu Yang lying there leisurely and humming a song, they felt that he should be struck by lightning. The points that other people had painstakingly earned through fighting and killing were snatched away by him just like that. Just thinking about it made the 5 of them feel pain in their liver, stomach, and even their internal organs. What was it about our anniversary? What was it about our beautiful anniversary? This made their blood pressure soar and blood almost spurt out of their heads. Humiliation, a great humiliation. This was a great humiliation to the East Continent and the Sky Academy. The dignified people of the East Continent, more than 200,000 people, were humiliated and manipulated by 4 wild dogs. If the news of this spread out, the backbones of these 200,000 people would be broken by thousands of people in the East Continent, and the Sky Academy would probably fall into a storm again and be scolded as the wild dog's den. Lu Yangsha's face was extremely ugly, as if he had just lost his bloodline. He gritted his teeth and said, "We can't let the wild dog succeed. Otherwise, the Sky Academy will definitely be scolded, and so will the 5 of us. Chapter 998. That's right. We can't let this wild dog get away with it. It's enough that it happened once. We must find a way to stop this arrogant wild dog. Before their voices died away, they saw Chu Yang smiling evilly at those who had not passed the test in the bright mirror. Everyone, you are all people with integrity in the East Continent. I admire you. Therefore, in order to express my admiration for you, I'm officially informing you that the passage is closed. With a boom, Chu Yang destroyed the formation and cut off the connection between the two-dimensional secret realms. Because of the change in the dimensional secret realm, the bright mirror shook violently and then cracked. They soon lost track of Chu Yang. Damn wild dog! How dare he do this? He destroyed the hope of so many people to enter the Sky Academy. They are all people with integrity in the East Continent. They are unwilling to submit to the wild dog. How can we disappoint them? We must punish this wild dog. However, when it came to punishing Chu Yang, the 5 people's faces suddenly darkened. Chu Yang did not violate the rules of the Sky Academy. How could they punish him? He stole the control of the formation. They could only say that the 5 of them were useless. The assessment of the Sky Academy was originally cruel. They only cared about the points and did not care about the process. They could use any means and even encouraged killing. Stealing the control of the formation was nothing. If someone had the ability to steal the control of the formation, the Sky Academy would only admire and be surprised. Unfortunately, this person was not from the East Continent, but the wild dog. The 5 people could not be surprised. This wild dog did not violate the rules of the Academy. Are we going to let this wild dog do whatever he wants? Lu Yangxia growled unwillingly. Among the remaining 4 people, the one called Ping Zimo said, "It doesn't matter. There are 8 more tests. As long as we don't let this wild dog succeed in stealing the control of the formation in these 8 tests, he will be beaten to death." After that, Ping Zimo said with a sinister smile, "Wait, I must see how he will die. Otherwise, it will be hard for me to vent my anger." That's right, old Ping is right. The 5 of them immediately took out another mirror and observed Chu Yang and the others. At the same time, he paid close attention to Chu Yang's movements. Once he made a move, he would immediately activate the formation so that he wouldn't be able to succeed. However, to their dismay, Chu Yang took the parrot, Cui Xinho, and Meng how to find a place to chat and play. Chu Yang only made his move after the second stage, which was also the end of the second-dimensional secret realm's assessment. Chu Yang directly invaded the array formation. The 5 people activated the array formation, but found that they could not do anything to Chu Yang, let alone kick him out of the array formation. They could only watch helplessly as Chu Yang tied up his pockets again, casually manipulating the other examinees and humiliating the East Continent. How is this possible? This wild dog has already stolen the control of the array. When did he do it? We actually didn't notice it? How is that possible? Could it be that during the first stage, he had already thought of the next step and stole the nodes of the array in advance to gain control of the array formation? The 5 of them were shocked. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. It was simply unbelievable. After the shock, Lu Yangxia immediately said in a panic, hurry up, check the nodes of the array formation of the 3rd and 4th dimensional secret realm. We can't let him succeed again." "That's right, we still have a chance to salvage the situation." Ping Zimo, Guan Jianmin, and the others were immediately energized. As long as they could do it this time, Chu Yang would definitely be torn apart by Chu Yang's previous actions without the protection of the array formation. The 5 of them checked the nodes of the array formation again and again to make sure that there were no mistakes. They were waiting to see how Chu Yang and the others would be tortured to death. However, to their astonishment, when the third stage of the assessment ended, Chu Yang gave them the middle finger across space, and time to show his disdain. What made the 5 of them even more aggrieved was that Chu Yang didn't move at all and stayed in the third-dimensional secret realm. In this way, Chu Yang would be safe. When the assessment ended, he would have enough points to enter the Sky Academy. After all, Chu Yang and the others could only enter the Sky Chores Yard, and it only cost 10,000 points to enter the Chores Yard. At this moment, Chu Yang and the others didn't have 70,000 or 80,000 points. There was no way to stop Chu Yang and the others from entering the Sky Academy. Lu Yangxia's face became even uglier, and he couldn't laugh anymore. This wild dog is really amazing, but the so-called "I don't allow it, so it can't" is really a joke. That's right. The old man named Guan Jianmin also sneered and said, although the wild dog entered the Sky Academy, I have an idea that will definitely make him retreat. After a pause, he sneered and said, what do you think about sending this wild dog to the Chores Yard Lunatic Asylum? Lunatic Asylum. Hearing this, the other 4 old men all applauded and exclaimed in admiration. This lunatic asylum was a place that made everyone in the Sky Academy pale. There was an old lunatic there who specialized in using people for research. Even he himself had gone crazy. I'm afraid that the wild dog doesn't know the power of the lunatic asylum, let alone the horror of the old lunatic. I don't know. If he goes in, he will either die or become a lunatic. In this way we will still lose. He is a lunatic, but he is also a lunatic of the Sky Academy. Yes, we must let the wild dog know how powerful we are and voluntarily withdraw from the Sky Academy. In this way, what happened today will not become a joke and a shame. After the 5 finished their discussion, they waited for the assessment to end and directly sent Chu Yang and the others to the lunatic asylum. Thinking of the situation in the lunatic asylum, Lu Yangxia couldn't help laughing. What do you think? Send someone to tell the old lunatic that a new disciple will come in soon. I think he will be very happy. Don't do that. Even the dean doesn't dare to anger the old lunatic. If the wild dog knows the difficulty and retreats, where can we find the new disciples? Chapter 999. The Sky Academy's assessment was in full swing. Every student who participated in the assessment was striving for points and fighting with each other. Every once in a while, someone would die. The dimensional secret realm of the assessment was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. It was a world of jungle, a bloody and extremely dangerous world. The 5 elders in charge of the assessment were afraid that Chu Yang would make trouble again, so they always paid attention to his movements. But every time they saw him, they were so angry that they almost vomited blood. The students who participated in the assessment in the East Continent fought and killed each other like demonic beasts in order to earn points in the secret realm. However, Chu Yang and his companions just ate when they were hungry and slept when they were sleepy. When they were bored, they just looked at the mountains and rivers and played in the secret realm. They were so comfortable. When it was dark, Chu Yang and his companions even held a bonfire party in high spirits. They sang and danced and laughed happily. The 5 elders watched all this and were so angry that they almost had a stroke, but they could do nothing about it while gnashing their teeth. What angered them the most was that Chu Yang still didn't greet them across time and space. He asked them if they were hungry or tired. He also reminded them that they were old and shouldn't work so hard. Otherwise, they might die suddenly. There was no worst, only worse. There was no most arrogant, only more arrogant. There was no most irritating, only more irritating. The 5 elders were so angry that they were about to explode. They were roaring in their sleep, gnashing their teeth in anger. 5 days later, the assessment was coming to an end. During these 5 days, Chu Yang didn't do anything. The 5 elders in charge of the assessment gradually lost their vigilance against Chu Yang. They basically believed that Chu Yang was waiting for the assessment to end and then enter the chores yard of the Sky Academy. As for other things, they thought that Chu Yang didn't dare to do anything. After being targeted by them, without the help of the Dimensional Secret Realms formation, Chu Yang didn't dare to fight against more than 200,000 people in the East Continent, no matter how arrogant he was. That was simply courting death. But there were no more than 200,000 people left. At least 100,000 people were eliminated in the first stage of the assessment. Because Chu Yang had cut off the formation, the most courageous people in the East Continent were trapped in the first stage, completely losing the opportunity to participate in the next stage of the assessment. The 5 of them were not allowed to interfere in this. This was how the assessment of the Sky Academy was defined. As long as it was done by the examinees, they could not interfere or change it. Therefore, the 5 of them could only watch as the most courageous seedlings of the East Continent were all eliminated. As for the remaining 100,000 or so people, because there were fewer people than usual, the points they could obtain were also fewer. Therefore, in order to become an outer courtyard or even inner courtyard student, the slaughter between each other was even more intense, and the number of casualties was many times higher than before. All of this was caused by a wild dog. He had single-handedly changed all of this and started all of this. The test is finally over. Otherwise, if I were to continue watching like this, I would probably die from anger. Lu Yangxia let out a long sigh. Over the past 5 days, he had lost count of how many times he had been enraged by thunder. Now, he was completely exhausted. This wild dog. If I find a chance, I'll definitely cut him into pieces. Don't sulk. We have to keep our spirits up in the closing stage. This wild dog is really capable. We've lived for so long, and all our cultivation has been eaten by this wild dog. We're often angered to death by this wild dog. If this spreads out, we'll be laughed at. Chapter 1000. At this moment, Chu Yang made his move in the Dimensional Secret Realm. With a swoosh, he brought the parrot into the array. Then, the seemingly unimportant nodes of the array that he had occupied in advance were immediately activated, bursting out with boundless light. Chu Yang used these nodes to rapidly teleport through the Dimensional Secret Realm. From the 3rd Dimensional Secret Realm, he quickly entered the 4th, then the 5th, the 6th, and the 9th Dimensional Secret Realm. His movement immediately alerted Lu Yangxia, Ping Zimo, and the others. Damn it, what is this wild dog planning to do? We only paid attention to the connecting points of the Dimensional Secret Realms, but we didn't pay attention to the other nodes of the array. This wild dog is so calculating. The 5 of them instantly felt their scalps tingle. This was simply a strategy that could determine the outcome of the battle from 1,000 miles away. The wild dog had already calculated their moves and had completely fooled them. Such intelligence made them tremble with fear. Oh no, this wild dog is probably going to control the exit of the 9th Secret Realm to achieve his goal, which is to force all the candidates to enter the chores yard. Guan Jianmen, one of the 5 old men, suddenly came to his senses and cried out in alarm. However, by the time the 5 of them reacted, Chu Yang had already arrived at the position. Through the nodes of the array, he had completely controlled the exit. In an instant, the 5 old men felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies shook violently and their faces turned pale. Stop him, we must stop him. We can't let this wild dog succeed. This is a disgrace to the East Continent. We can't just watch it happen. Even if I have to risk my life, I can't let this wild dog succeed. The 5 of them quickly controlled the array and tried to snatch the array back. However, when their soul power entered the array through the core of the array and was about to snatch the nodes of the array, they screamed as if they had been cut by a sword. This wild dog is proficient in soul spells and is extremely powerful. Be careful, he can destroy our spiritual imprints. At this moment, Chu Yang was at the entrance of the ninth mystery realm, controlling the formation there. Then, he closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged. Astral projection. The space between his eyebrows lit up. Then, his soul power converged into his original form. Then, he threw it into the formation. Using the array formation of the mystic realm as his body, his soul entered the array formation. At Chu Yang's level of cultivation, it was easy for him to cast his soul out of his body. At this moment, he was carrying out his final plan, to break through the barrier of heaven and become a 6th-grade array master. He wanted to use the participants from the East Continent to break through the barrier of heaven and become a level 6 array master. Destroying one's future was no different from killing one's parent. Now that Chu Yang had blocked the exit, the students of the Sky Academy in the East Continent would definitely go crazy and try to break the barrier. The only difficulty was actually how to manifest the heavenly barrier and let them attack it. Now, what Chu Yang was doing was the result of his deduction and everything that had been planned out. With the formation as his body and his soul in it, the heavenly barrier was naturally brought in and manifested in the formation. At this moment, the entire dimensional secret realm was like Chu Yang's body, and the exit was Chu Yang's spiritual world. The heavenly barrier would also appear there. Buzz. Chu Yang tried to break through the 6th-grade array formation. Immediately, the heavenly barrier appeared and blocked the way. At the entrance of the 9th mystery realm, a thick but extremely transparent barrier appeared. Good. Chu Yang was deeply excited. Everything that the celestial demon martial soul had deduced was realized one by one. There was no mistake, so he was completely relieved. However, he found that the heavenly barrier was very different from what he had felt before. The heavenly barrier that Chu Yang had felt in his own body was definitely not as thick as this. It was also impossible for it to be so firm. Chapter 1001. The magic array is the body. The massive magic array is countless times larger compared to the fleshly body. Although there is no change in my mental power and comprehension of the world, the heavenly barrier has undergone a great change. That is especially so when the heavenly barrier appears in the real world. How could there not be any changes? Chu Yang understood after thinking for a while. He was now a little worried whether these people from the East Continent could break the barrier of heaven. No, they are guilty. None of them want to pass the test and enter the Sky Academy. Chu Yang felt that this was not enough to stimulate the people from the East Continent, so he immediately showed 6 big words on the barrier of heaven. I won't allow it, so you can't. When Lu Yangxia, Ping Zimo, and Guan Jianmin saw the 6 words, they blacked out and fell to the ground directly. This kind of thing really happened. They had been guarding against it all along, but the wild dog still succeeded. However, the 5 of them were at a loss of what to do now. After Chu Yang's soul had entered the matrix, they simply couldn't snatch it back. Only the person who had arranged the matrix, or someone who was proficient in matrix, would be able to do so. But how could it be possible? Even if there were people who were proficient in it, they were not in charge of the test this time, so they absolutely could not intervene. If they did, they would break the rules of the Sky Academy. Even if they succeeded, it would be meaningless and they would be severely punished by the Academy. Soon after, many students who were going to take the test appeared at the entrance with smiles on their faces. They were looking forward to entering the Sky Academy. However, when they saw the heavenly barrier and the 6 words, the smiles on their faces froze in an instant. Wild dog, how dare you! Wild dog, I'll kill you! Damn wild dog, how dare you do this? I promise you will die a horrible death. The people from the East Continent were all furious. Many of them cursed and swore fiercely. Ha ha! Chu Yang's evil laughter resounded through the entire dimensional secret realm. His wicked smile appeared on the barrier of heaven. Are you angry? Come on, slap my face. In the void, the spiritual chi turned into a huge finger and pointed at Chu Yang's face on the barrier of heaven. This action was extremely sarcastic and provocative. However, Chu Yang was even angrier. Every living person in the East Continent would call him a wild dog whenever they saw him. His mood was not good at all. Wild dog, you're digging your own grave. What you've done has angered everyone. Have you thought about the consequences? Can you imagine how terrifying it is to have 100,000 people enraged? Threats were issued one after another, each of their faces terrifying. Chu Yang was nonchalant. There was no difference. If he didn't retort, he wouldn't retort. If he didn't retort, he would be retort. This was the situation that the people of the eastern wilderness faced in the East Continent. If I don't allow it, then it can't. Chu Yang laughed. Two-legged maggot, it's time to witness a miracle. Ga. A burst of strange laughter could be heard as the parrot appeared in front of the heavenly barrier. Amitabha, the Lord said, if I don't enter heaven, who will? The Lord also said that all of you are inferior to hell. Who will enter hell? Wahahaha. Ha ha. Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing also laughed heartily. Hao Haodong pointed at the people of the East Continent. What are you threatening us for? We won't do it today, but can't you let us go? I clearly remember that a year ago, a good friend of mine begged for mercy, but you maggots were indifferent. You cut off his head like you're killing a dog. He roared angrily, his eyes bloodshot. Maggots, you can feel sullen and angry. Ha ha! Hao Haodong laughed loudly. This is great, this is great. I, Hao Haodong, am willing to die right now to humiliate these maggots like this. Ha ha! Cui Xinho and Olajing also looked like Hao Haodong. They suppressed the arrogance of the people of the East Continent. Chapter 1002. Since you know your pigs and dogs, how dare you be so presumptuous? You don't deserve to set foot in the East Continent. After hearing this, Chu Yang couldn't help but feel hatred in his heart. However, he laughed and said, Maggot, stand out and I promise I won't kill you. Why would I be afraid of a mere wild dog? An extremely handsome young man with jade-like features walked out from the crowd. He pointed at Chu Yang who was on the barrier and said, Wild dog, I, Li Zhantian, am here. What can you do? So what if you're gnashing your teeth in hatred? Can you kill me? Hee hee. Chu Yang laughed and then said loudly, Maggots, listen up. If you kill this Li Zhantian, I'll let you enter the chores yard of the Sky Academy. The quota is limited. Don't miss it. Hearing this, Li Zhantian trembled and immediately thought of the beautiful scenery. He didn't want to be a part of the beautiful scenery. He was terrified and looked around vigilantly like a mouse. His cowering appearance was very funny. Li Zhantian, don't panic. If anyone dares to touch you, I'll twist off his head first. Buzz. With a light sound, a short man appeared. He could almost be called a dwarf, but when he revealed his aura, the surroundings immediately seemed to freeze. When the people of the East Continent saw this short person, they couldn't help but be shocked. A murderous dwarf. The short person had already made a name for himself in the assessment. His methods were extremely cruel and ferocious, which made people shudder. Dwarf, your height can't match your tone. No wonder you're so ugly. Chu Yang directly attacked him. This dwarf made him so angry that he completely ruined the plan he took out from the brocade bag. Wild dog, you're courting death. Boom. The short young man was instantly furious. His murderous aura surged like a tide. The majesty of the soul amalgamation realm was like the might of the heavens. It made everyone so frightened that no one was within 10 feet of him. Being short was his life's pain. Those who dared to say that he was short were all dead. Hee hee, I'm so scared. Chu Yang said sarcastically, Little shorty, come on, come and kill me. Quack quack. The parrot also joined in. Shorty, come and kill this divine bird. Chui Shinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing all laughed heartily. Wild dog, you're courting death. Bang! The short man furiously attacked, and with a bang, the dust under his feet flew into the air. His small body was like an erupting volcano, and his spirit chi gushed out like magma. He threw a punch at the barrier in the sky. However, he was fiercely bounced back. As for the barrier in the sky, it did not move in the slightest. Attack! All of you, attack! I don't believe that we can't destroy a mere barrier with so many of us. The short one was completely enraged and ordered the people of the East Continent to attack. At this time Li Zhantian roared, "Everyone, think about it. Why did we risk our lives in the secret territory? Think about it again. When we were killing each other and blood flowed like a river, what were these wild dog doing? They were laughing at us from the side." Bang! With just one sentence, the people of the East Continent were instantly enraged. Chu Yang had gained points too easily, but they had shed blood and sweat, risked their lives, and experienced many dangers. For 5 days and 5 nights they had been tense all the time. They had killed a bloody path to reach this place. They had stepped on many corpses and many vengeful souls to reach this place. Their hands were stained with blood. Even so, in the end, they were still being manipulated by the wild dog. They felt that they were simply slaves in the wild dog's hands. The wild dog looked down on them from above, and they were like gladiators in the arena, fighting for the wild dog. Chapter 1003. Humiliation, Great Humiliation, Unprecedented Humiliation. The people of the East Continent were all furious and filled with murderous intent. Hee, the two-legged maggots are angry. Chu Yang was overjoyed when he saw this. At the same time, he did not forget to fan the flames. He said to Xiao Guai, "The maggots are attacking. Xiao Guai, go and get some insecticide. You can pretend to be repelling the maggot." "Why is it me again? What kind of bullshit insecticide is this?" The parrot was depressed. It did not want to work. As a bird, it did not need to kill the maggot. The maggots ran away when they saw it. However, it had no choice but to take Chui Shinho and the other two with it. "Didn't you hear me? The maggots are attacking. It's time to pretend to be repelling the maggot." The parrot and the other two quickly pretended to be repelling the maggot. This kind of mockery could not be tolerated, absolutely not. Boom! The people of the East Continent were furious, as if they could burn through the sky. Kill! The short young man was the first to move, followed by Li Zhantian. Behind them, nearly 100,000 people also moved. It was like an army of 100,000 attacking a city. The scene was extremely spectacular. Bang! 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 In an instant, countless bombardments landed on the heavenly barrier. Sounds of explosions rang out continuously. At this moment, the heavenly barrier started to soften from the bombardments. Ripples started to appear on the surface of the heavenly barrier. There were even many places that had caved in. However, it was still not broken. Hiss! Chu Yang secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. This was too ridiculous. There were so many people, and they were bombarding it continuously. Yet, they couldn't break the heavenly barrier. "Please, you have to work harder." Chu Yang was about to pray. If they could not break it, he could not do anything. Although the heavenly barrier was extremely strong because of the array, it also showed that it was extremely difficult to break the heavenly barrier and become a 6th-level array master. Hey, what a wonderful performance! Chu Yang was really afraid that they would lose their minds, so he immediately said sarcastically. Then, he glared at the parrot and shouted, "Xiao Guai, where's your poisonous tongue? Why me again?" The parrot was not in a good mood. "Hey, you maggots, can't you let this divine bird turn on its viewing mode properly? You actually made this divine bird worry about your disappointment and despair. Is this divine bird your father or mother? You actually made this divine bird worry so much." The people of the East Continent gritted their teeth, which made it curse. What are you looking at? What are you staring at? You're so fierce. The people of the East Continent were even angrier, but the parrot was even angrier. Do you think you're in the right? You actually want this divine bird to work for you? Let me tell you, this divine bird has been unhappy with you for a long time. I've never seen such lowly people like you. You're being scolded and humiliated like that, yet you don't even take the initiative to get angry. Io, divine bird, this is really an eye-opener for me. How could there be such lowly people like you in this world? You've really refreshed my understanding. After that, the parrot immediately activated the 3-character classic. #yen%yen, #yen. It cursed the heavens, cursed the earth, and cursed the 18 generations of ancestors of everyone present. The people of the East Continent were extremely furious, and smoke was coming out of their 7 orifices. They could not wait to break the heavenly barrier and kill this lowly bird. They frantically bombarded the heavenly barrier, but in the end they could not break it. Chu Yang was even more worried, and he ordered the parrot again. Lowly, what's wrong with you? You're so bad at cursing people. The parrot's throat was smoking from cursing just now, and because of this result, it immediately started cursing again. I say, are you going to let this bird live or not? This bird, I beg you, hurry up and break the heavenly barrier. This bird's throat is already smoking, and I really can't scold you incorrigible people. The East Continent has really disappointed this divine bird. No matter how many people there are, they're all trash and good-for-nothings. Their faces are as thick as the city walls. Needles are crooked, swords are bent, spears are stabbed, and spears are broken. How do you expect this divine bird to save you? The parrot wailed in despair, as if it was going to be angered to death by the people of the East Continent. It was really irritating. The people of the East Continent were so angry that they almost exploded. However, they seemed to be just angry, and no one else noticed anything, which made Chu Yang finally feel relieved. Fortunately, there are not many smart people in the East Continent. However, on second thought, he realized that it was not right. Even if there were smart people, they would not make a sound now. Otherwise, if they could not break the heavenly barrier, they would lose the opportunity to enter the Sky Academy. Chapter 1004. After a while, the people from the East Continent finally came out to organize themselves. They were divided into several echelons. One group was responsible for bombarding the heavenly barrier, another group was in charge of preparing, and another group was in charge of regulating their breathing. After a while, the heavenly barrier finally cracked at the spot where the heavenly barrier was being bombarded. When the people from the East Continent heard this, their spirits were lifted and they began to attack even harder. When Chu Yang heard this, it was as if he had heard heavenly music. Great! He looked at the crack in the heavenly barrier and thought to himself, soon. Put in more effort. Just a little more and you'll be able to break it. With the formation as the body, the heavenly barrier appeared in the world. The heavenly barrier was so strong that it was beyond Chu Yang's imagination. Crack, crack. More and more cracks appeared on the heavenly barrier. At this moment, the people from the East Continent went crazy when they saw that they were about to succeed. Break the heavenly barrier and slaughter those wild dog. We must kill those wild dog. Only the blood of the wild dog can wash away our humiliation. There was a loud rumble, and in the midst of their furious roars, the heavenly barrier was completely destroyed. It was instantly blasted open, and the road ahead was suddenly opened up. Kill! In the midst of the battle cries, Chu Yang felt as if he had jumped out of the world, and out of the 5 elements. He felt as if he had been rescued from a sealed prison cell. He felt freedom in an instant, and incomparable joy filled his heart. At the same time, he felt as if he had just entered the East Continent from the eastern wilderness. He immediately felt the power of this new realm. In an instant, Chu Yang felt as insignificant as a speck of dust in this vast world. A great sense of awe rose in his heart. Is this the power of a 6th-grade formation master? Chu Yang carefully sensed everything. At this moment, he did not feel as if he was at the top of the mountain, looking down at the small world below, nor did he see the entire vast world. He was like a fish that had finally found the ocean after many hardships, but the next moment, he was shocked by the vastness of the ocean. He also sensed the danger in the ocean. The huge fish in the ocean, the swimming sea serpents, and the hunters lurking in the dark made him, a fish that had just entered the ocean, feel that the ocean was extremely strange, and at the same time, he also felt many incomparable dangers. The dangerous aura I feel should be those experts from the Sky Academy. Chu Yang didn't dare to pry. It was very rash, and if he accidentally angered these experts, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. The breakthrough of the formation this time was completely different from the previous ones. When he was in the eastern wilderness, Chu Yang felt that the entire world was his, and the entire world was his array. However, everything was different in the East Continent. The eastern wilderness can't compare to the East Continent. Chu Yang had to admit this. The people of the East Continent did have their reasons to be proud, but as humans, they had gone too far. The moment Chu Yang felt the rules of heaven and earth, the parrot Cui Xinho and the other two had already retreated to the second barrier, which was the barrier formed by the array of the dimensional secret realm. There were also 6 big words on it: I won't allow it, so you can't. The people of the East Continent were all blocked here. Maggots, thank you for breaking the barrier of heaven for me and allowing me to enter the ranks of the 5th-level array masters. I, a noble person, express my sincere gratitude and most loyal condolences to you. Maggots, you've worked hard. What? He helped the wild dog break the barrier of heaven and help him enter the 5th-level array master realm. The people of the East Continent were stunned. How is this possible? Unfortunately, what they didn't know was that Chu Yang was very evil. He was a 6th-level array master, but he said that he was a 5th-level array master. On the other side, the 5 old men in charge of the assessment saw everything. They were very excited just now, but when they heard this, they were completely petrified. At this moment, time seemed to have completely stopped. The people of the East Continent didn't believe it and crazily bombarded the barrier, but this time, no matter how they bombarded, the barrier didn't move at all. The array in the dimensional secret realm was so vast that no matter how many people there were, they couldn't shake it. It was not something that could be broken by many people. For example, no matter how many worms there were, they couldn't bite through a thick steel plate. The assessment was over, and the fighting and killing were temporarily suspended. In the end, only those with less than 10,000 points could pass the barrier and walk out of the dimensional secret realm. I won't allow it, so you can't. This time, all the people who participated in the assessment were handyman students, no exception. Chu Yang's goal was achieved. Chu Yang, Cheap Chu, Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, Olajing, come with us. Chu Yang and the others became handyman students of the Sky Academy and were taken to the lunatic asylum by Lu Yangxia. Chu Yang knew very well that it was time for them to be embarrassed. Chapter 1005. Ping Zimo, Ta Mingyuan, Dong Zisher, and Guan Jianmin were the 5 elders in charge of this test. They were not in a good mood. Even though there were no clouds in the sky at this moment, as if it had been washed clean, it was extremely clean, as if there was not a speck of dust on it. However, the 5 of them still had dark clouds on their faces. At this time, their faces seemed to be rumbling with anger. They did not hide their disgust for Chu Yang, the parrot Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing. Chu Yang only felt that these 5 old maggots were looking at him as if they were looking at a strong mad dog. They couldn't wait to lock him up in a dog cage so that he wouldn't bite people. They were even thinking about whether to stew or fry this mad dog after killing it. His mood was extremely bad in an instant. "Damn you 5 old maggots. You'll only be satisfied when I'm killed by you, right?" Both sides hated each other and did not say anything. The atmosphere was very oppressive and silent. If it were not for the rules of the Sky Academy, Chu Yang would have been killed by the 5 old men. In the silent depression, the group kept moving forward. At first, there were people on the road pointing at Chu Yang and the others, saying that they were wild dog. But as they went on, it became quieter and quieter. There were fewer people, as if they had entered a no-man's land, a dead zone. The parrot's eyes became more and more slanted. How could it not see that the 5 old maggots were going to kill them? If it were not for the fact that it was not strong enough to defeat the old maggots, it would not have held back and used the 3-character classic. Chu Yang's mood became worse and worse, but the smile on his face became brighter and brighter. After a while, the 5 maggots in front of them finally stopped. Chu Yang and the others looked ahead and saw a ruin. All the buildings there had collapsed, and the ground was full of scars. Cracks could be seen everywhere, and deep pits were scattered all over the place. What was most incredible was that there was a deep pit. It was so dark and bottomless that it seemed to be the 9 serenities hell below it. At the very center of the ruins, there was only an ancient and weathered small courtyard. It was located at the center, like the last refuge in a doomsday world. The surroundings were deathly silent. There wasn't a single sound. He couldn't sense any insects, nor could he see any living creatures. There wasn't even any vegetation. It was as if everything was dead. The spirit chi here was violent and chaotic. Compared to other places, this place seemed to be a concentration camp, a huge prison. The spirit chi here was imprisoning the most vicious criminals and evildoers in the world. Chu Yang's sharp divine senses even sensed a chaotic, divided, and extremely deranged aura. His expression became more and more unsightly. This was definitely not a good place. The 5 old men noticed the change in Chu Yang's expression. Among them, Lu Yangxia laughed. "Do you feel a sense of madness? I can tell you clearly that this is a madhouse." As he spoke, he pointed at the small courtyard in the center of the ruins. "There's only one person living there. It's an old lunatic. From now on, he will be the one to discipline you." The other 4 old men, Ta Mingyuan, Ping Zimo, Guan Jianmen, and Dong Zisher, couldn't help but laugh. If it weren't for their status, they would have laughed out loud. Exhilarating, it was simply too exhilarating. The wild dog was finally going to be defeated. It finally knew fear. Such malice was perhaps the greatest malice Chu Yang had ever felt. Damn old maggots, they all deserve to die. Chapter 1006. Humph. Lu Yangxia sneered in his heart. "Let's see how long a mad dog like you can last." Listen carefully. This place was originally called the Shangshan Yard. It was the residence of immortal Shangshan and his wife. In order to fight against the extraterrestrial demons, immortal Shangshan and his wife, as well as their 3 children, experienced an extremely tragic battle. In the end, except for immortal Shangshan, everyone else died. Outer space demons? Chu Yang's pupils couldn't help but shrink. Could it be that this is a sealed place? The so-called outer space demons were mentioned by the 6th great-uncle of the barren village when he told Chu Yang the general situation of the eastern continent. The outer space demons were actually people from another world. The world Chu Yang was in was called the Heavenly Spirit World. There was another world connected to the Heavenly Spirit World called the Myriad Gods World. The so-called extraterrestrial demons were people from the Gods World. As long as they appeared in the Heavenly Spirit World, they would be repelled by the Heavenly Spirit World. Demonic chi would surge around them, making them look like demons. Hence, they were called extraterrestrial demons. The 6 great academies of the Eastern continent, the Sky Academy, the Star Academy, the Heavenly Demon Academy, the Myriad Elephant Academy, the Heavenly Knight Academy, and the Heavenly Sword Academy, existed to suppress the passageways between the Myriad Gods world and the Heavenly Spirit world. Thus, the 6 great academies of the Eastern continent often had wars between the two worlds. Fortunately, the 6 passageways weren't very strong and couldn't allow peerless characters to pass through. Thus, the 6 great academies were able to suppress them. The more Chu Yang thought about it, the angrier he became. The 5 old maggots had arranged for them to be here. If the passageway's seal was broken and the people from the Myriad Gods world came, they would be the first to suffer. You're right, this place is indeed a sealed place. In the past, a space-time passageway suddenly appeared here and caught us off guard. Thus, the Shangshan spiritual master and his family met with this calamity. Lu Yangxia paused here, waiting for Chu Yang's and the other wild dog's reaction. Anger or fear? The other 4 old men, Ta Mingyuan and the others, understood Lu Yangxia's meaning. They smiled and waited for Chu Yang's reaction. The parrot didn't live up to expectations. It was so angry that it was almost smoking, and its eyes could kill. Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing's complexion were also extremely unsightly. Just like the haze of the 5 old men, it was as if they were about to explode with thunder. Their gloomy expressions made the gloominess on the faces of Lu Yangxia and the other 4 completely disappear. 5 old and disrespectful maggots, don't let me get the chance. If I don't kill you then, my name is Yang Chu. Chu Yang was flustered and exasperated, but the angrier he became, the more he laughed, the happier he became. 5 seniors, I, Chu Yang, am able to guard the space-time channel. That means you acknowledge my ability. I will definitely sacrifice myself to repay you. Whether the seal lives or dies, I vow to live or die with the seal. Interesting. Lu Yangxia and the others looked at each other and then couldn't help but laugh. This wild dog was actually threatening them. If it was provoked, it would jump over the wall and break the seal. They just wanted to break the seal, but wild dog, do you have such a chance? You have to survive first, or at least not go crazy. The 5 of them almost couldn't help but laugh. As for whether this would make them seem tasteless, they didn't care because Chu Yang was from the eastern wilderness. If they humiliated someone from the eastern wilderness, who in the East continent would criticize them? Lu Yangxia couldn't hold back the smile on his face any longer. All the wrinkles on his face were exposed. Chu Yang, your spirit is exactly what the Academy needs. If everyone is like you, then there's no need to worry about the seal suppressing them. Chapter 1007. Chu Yang knew that the Real show was coming. The reason why the old maggots talked so painfully was to frighten Chu Yang and make them back out of the Sky Academy. Otherwise, why would these shameless old maggots say such nonsense to them? Because Immortal Shangshan went crazy, there are 4 outcomes for those who enter the lunatic asylum. Lu Yangxia extended 4 fingers and said slowly, full of interest, first, it's like being dismembered by 5 horses, directly torn into 7 or 8 pieces. As for the specific process, I heard it's very cruel. The parrot seemed to be trembling, which made Lu Yangxia even more excited. However, the old man named Ta Mingyuan interrupted. Let me tell you the second outcome. Ta Mingyuan looked at Chu Yang with a smile and said, the second outcome is that your soul will be torn into countless pieces and then completely disordered. You will become a lunatic and eat shit as if it's delicious. Such things have happened in the Academy. As an old man, as an elder, Chu Yang had lived for a long time to hear such words. However, he also knew that these 5 old maggots didn't treat them as juniors at all. They didn't even treat them as humans, but as dogs. Therefore, they didn't hide their ugliness at all. Let me tell you the third outcome. The old man named Ping Zimo also intervened and played tricks on Chu Yang and the others. The third outcome is that if your soul power is not strong enough, once your soul is torn and can't bear it, you will become a living dead and then be dismembered. However, it doesn't matter if you are dismembered. You can no longer feel pain. At most, it's like whipping your corpse. Since someone has told you the first three outcomes, I will tell you the fourth one. Otherwise, you will be in the lunatic asylum because there are not enough people to remind you. The moment the old man called Dong Zisher opened his mouth, the 5 old men's faces all broke out into a wide smile. Fourth, you can say that you are lucky, but you can also say that you are not lucky. Fortunately, you won't die immediately. You'll only have a part of your body or a part of your soul dismembered. You'll become a cripple or an idiot. It's fine if you're an idiot, but if you're a cripple, I suggest you commit suicide. Since you're going to die anyway, why do you have to beg for death? Vile, vile to the extreme. Despicable, despicable to the extreme. These 5 old fogies who were about to enter the grave actually disregarded their status and used unscrupulous means to threaten 5 juniors. This was simply laughable. Lu Yangxia and the other 4 all stopped talking as they coldly stared at Chu Yang, waiting for Chu Yang's anger and curses. However, the development of the situation was completely out of their expectations. Chu Yang was so angry that he laughed. He laughed very brightly. Even if he had to die, he would not let these 5 disrespectful old men have their way. Many thanks to the 5 seniors for your guidance. Although we are lowly, we will definitely fight to the death. For the happiness of the people of the East Continent, we have to choose to fight without hesitation. Therefore, I have decided to join the mental hospital. In an instant, the smiles on the faces of Lu Yangxia and the other 4 froze. The deep wrinkles on their faces were clearly displayed, as if a dam had been built in an instant. Ba. Chu Yang became merciful. Buddha said, "If I enter hell, who will enter hell?" The world fell silent. The wind that blew from afar actually whistled at this moment. The small wind seemed to have turned into a tornado. Say that again. Lu Yangxia and the other 4 couldn't believe it. They thought that they had misheard. Knowing that they would die, they still wanted to go? This was really unexpected. Whether it was because of Chu Yang's anger or other reasons, this was definitely not what they wanted to see. Chu Yang said with a smile, "I was going to retreat in the face of difficulties, but I really can't stand your faces." Chapter 1008. I really can't bear to see your faces. Suddenly, Lu Yangxia and the other 4 realized what they had done wrong. Lu Yangxia forced a smile, but his face seemed paralyzed. His smile was stiff and forced. He tried his best to be gentle and said, "Since you've thought it through, why are you still angry? After all, your life is yours." However, he realized that Chu Yang was no longer listening to him. He took big steps and walked towards the courtyard. Cui Xinho and the other 2 also coldly snorted, and followed behind Chu Yang. Their footsteps were incomparably firm, and didn't have the slightest trace of wavering. How could they submit to these 5 scums? They would rather die than do that. Chu Yang's attitude was their attitude. So what if they died? But no matter what, they had to die with some pride and backbone. Looking at the back of Chu Yang's group disappearing, Lu Yangxia and the other 4's faces were covered with a layer of frost. They had gone too far. Chu Yang's mind was sharp. How could he not know their intentions? But what they did was too ugly. It had far exceeded the limits of Chu Yang's tolerance. Most smart people were proud, especially people like Chu Yang. They had dignity. How could they allow others to humiliate them? In fact, there was no need to force such a person. As long as you gave a little bit of advice, the other party would completely understand, and your plan would generally be able to succeed. Because they knew the pros and cons plus, it was just a little bit of humiliation. As long as it did not touch their bottom line of dignity, they would be able to tolerate it. When the 5 of them understood this, they felt even worse. They could not smile anymore. They realized that they were as stupid as pigs and dogs. They were even worse than pigs and dogs. From Chu Yang's firm footsteps, they could feel Chu Yang's determination. Maybe I will die, but I will make you unhappy. Sorry, I am so stubborn and proud. I just want to make you unhappy. Are we going to fight to the death with these wild dog? At this moment, Ping Zimo was still a little stunned, as if he couldn't accept this result. They actually didn't succeed. When Chu Yang and the others entered the mental hospital, they completely became students of the Sky Academy. In this way, they couldn't control Chu Yang at all, let alone take back 10% of their territory. They couldn't prove to the people of the East Continent that Wild Dog had succeeded for a while, which could only be a joke. If news of Chu Yang and the others dying in the mental hospital spread, it would only show the incompetence of the East Continent. It was ridiculous that they had to resort to a madman to get rid of a few wild dog. With such a death, Chu Yang and the others could still be proud and could still mock everyone in the East Continent. Lu Yangxia and the others realized that they had been completely defeated. They would become a laughingstock. They might even become the sinners of the East Continent and be attacked by the people of the East Continent. Perhaps this wild dog is just angry for a moment. Later, he will know the horror and immediately retreat. They waited with faint hope and didn't leave immediately. On the other side, the parrot on Chu Yang's shoulder said, "Master, it's almost time. Quickly turn back and admit defeat, or you will lose your life. Also, it's too shameful to be killed by a madman. It's extremely damaging to your wisdom." Chu Yang turned his head and said, "Little bitch, can you not be so bitch? Can you be shameless?" The parrot said shamelessly, "Master, I am a bitch. If you can't bring yourself to do it, I'll do it." Chu Yang looked at Cui Xinho and the others and asked, "What about you? What's your choice?" "I'd rather die than surrender." Cui Xinho's voice was resolute and decisive. "So what if I die? Death is never a big deal, as long as I die a worthy death. I choose this way to die. Instead of being humiliated to death like a pig or a dog, I can die in peace." Chapter 1009. Little bitch, did you hear that? Chu Yang never hesitated. He looked at the little bitch and said, "You can turn back now." "Ah bah." The parrot was angry. "Master, you wicked thing. Why do you look down on birds? I also have pride and self-respect. I #yen%#yen%." Then, it activated the 3-character classic. Haha. Chu Yang smiled evilly. "Little bitch, I thought you would quit being a bird and go back to being a dog. If that's the case, I'll wait for that person from the East Continent to fall in love with you over and over again. He'll love you so much that you want to die. Wicked master, if you dare to discriminate against birds and ignore my pride and self-respect again, I'll kill you." The parrot was irritated. It found that its master was too insidious. It was too dangerous outside. Why couldn't he warn it a little earlier? It almost left the big group and went back to being a dog. The mental hospital was indeed dangerous, but because of the discrimination of the entire East Continent against the East Wilderness, it was not dangerous in the East Continent. Based on what Chu Yang had done in the assessment, he was sure that once he stepped out of the Sky Academy, he would die without a complete corpse. At this moment, there were many people waiting for him outside. If he was kicked out by the Sky Academy, the result would be obvious. Fortune and misfortune depended on each other. The mental hospital was dangerous, but it was also safe. At least those people from the East Continent would not dare to set foot here easily. Anyway, Chu Yang would rather face a lunatic than the ugliest wolf and the ugliest person. In his opinion, the lunatic was much more lovable than them. Of course, he was also nervous. The uncertainty of a lunatic was too great. Chu Yang took the lead and carefully entered the courtyard. He found that there was no sign of damage. It was clean and tidy, without a trace of dust. It seemed that there was a very hard-working woman in the mental hospital. This is a mental hospital? This is a place where a lunatic lives. The parrot's eyes popped out. Bird, I'm not well educated. Don't lie to me. Cui Xinho and the other two were also a little surprised. When they stepped into the courtyard, they felt as though they had returned home. They even saw their hard-working mother taking care of their own courtyard. Is this really a madhouse? Chu Yang was also a little confused. If this was a place where a madman lived, then Chu Yang was even worse than a madman. If he lived alone, even if it wasn't a doghouse, it definitely wouldn't be so clean and tidy. Everything looked brand new. Waha! The parrot laughed heartily. Those 5 old maggots are trying to scam us. They're too naive. Cui Xinho and the other 2 laughed at this moment. If it was a lunatic living inside, then this lunatic would definitely be extremely adorable. Ame, you're finally back? Suddenly, a pleasantly surprised voice came from inside the house. Then, Chu Yang felt something flash in front of his eyes. In an instant, he saw a beggar. Yes, it was a beggar. Calling him a beggar was already a very polite description. The person who appeared looked as if he had just been fished out of a cesspool. His whole body was as black as ink, his hair was disheveled, and his face was dark. Only his eyes were bright, and at this moment they were blooming with an extremely joyful light. His whole body was emitting a foul smell, and there were maggots crawling on his body. Not maggots! Suddenly, Chu Yang's pupils shrank. The maggots crawling on the beggar's body seemed to be maggots, but he faintly felt a great danger from them. Chapter 10:10. Senior, we're new students of the Sky Academy. We're here to report. Chu Yang saluted respectfully. Just as he was about to speak, the man suddenly patted his head and laughed. Meng Meng, don't laugh at me. I just miss your mother too much. Good girl, come here and give me a hug. In an instant, the whole world froze and time seemed to have stopped. Chu Yang pointed at himself with a confused look. My daughter? Me? He was truly at a loss for words. After going through a reincarnation cycle in the eastern wastelands and returning to his original size from a little brat, he admitted that he was much more delicate and handsome than his original self. It could even be said that he was beautiful. However, it was not to the extent that he would become a woman. He had an Adam's apple, and he had the distinctive characteristics of a man. He was a man of iron and blood, a real man. The parrot was also stunned, but its expression was extremely interesting. Cui Xinho and the other 2 were also confused. Then, they saw the man, who looked like he had just been fished out of a cesspool, pick up Chu Yang and spin him around happily. Then he said, Meng Meng, when did you become so heavy? I can't carry you any more. Ha ha. Quack! Ha! The parrot couldn't help laughing, bursting into laughter. It laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out of its eyes. Even the wicked man has such a day. In fact, Cui Xinho and the other 2 also wanted to laugh, but out of respect for Chu Yang, they held back, but they still couldn't help smiling. What are you laughing at? I can't carry my own daughter. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. The parrot laughed even harder. How dare you laugh? The man was furious. He threw Chu Yang to the ground and pointed at the parrot angrily. My daughter is grown up. Can't I carry her? Is it shameless to carry her? The more he spoke, the angrier he became. I don't care, but my daughter is too shameless. If I don't teach you a lesson today, you'll regret it. The pitch-black hand opened towards the parrot. It seemed as if it had turned into a black hole. It erupted with a tremendous suction force. The parrot couldn't resist it, and was directly sucked in. Then, the man grabbed the parrot's wings with both of his hands and tried to tear the parrot in half. This old man is not a bloodthirsty person. Today, I'll give you a little punishment. I'll tear you in half and then reattach you back to your original appearance. I'll also let my daughter see her father's abilities. The 5 old maggots were not lying to them. Chu Yang and the others were startled. They had heard what this man had said a moment ago. Those 5 old maggots had said that people would be dismembered and their souls torn apart. This kind of thing might really happen. Master, save me! The parrot was scared out of its wits, and it shrieked in a shrill voice. It was completely terrified. It had no strength to struggle. In this man's hands, it was no different from an ordinary parrot. Chu Yang was also shocked. The man was delirious, and there was no point in saying anything. He could only accept his daughter's identity. Father, that's my parrot. If you tear it apart, my heart will ache, he said, trying to sound as effeminate as possible. He was really going all out. In the past, even if you held a knife to his neck, you wouldn't be able to see him like this. Chu Yang was afraid that he would beat himself to death if he saw such an appearance that was neither male nor female. As soon as he finished speaking, goosebumps broke out all over his body. Ha ha ha! The man laughed. Don't worry, my dear daughter. Your parrot won't die. I'm just doing a magic trick for you. Besides, even if I tear your parrot apart, I'm sure your father has the ability to restore it. Besides, it's not like you don't know your father's embroidery skills. He can definitely sew your parrot back together. You won't be able to tell at all. The parrot's hair stood on end. It was terrifying. Chapter 10-11. This lunatic should be immortal. Shangshan. Chu Yang knew his identity, but what was the use of knowing a lunatic's identity? His brain was short-circuited, so he directly used the divine demon martial soul to deduce. Then he slapped his head, feeling that he was so stupid that he did not even know how to give someone a taste of their own medicine. The 5 old maggots played tricks on him. How could he not play tricks on them? 10 years was not too late for a gentleman to take revenge, but he did not need 10 years. He called himself a genius in swindling and stealing in vain. Father, the parrot was not laughing at you just now. It was reminding you that there are 5 shameless old men peeping outside. You have to go outside and tell them. If this gets out, my reputation. Chu Yang was already in a difficult position with his sissy voice. The words that followed were even more disgusting. He really could not bring himself to say something like, I don't want to live anymore. Buzz. When immortal Shangshan heard this, he immediately released the power of his spiritual soul. The void immediately buzzed and shook like a rag. The power of his spiritual soul was extremely powerful. If he did not subconsciously protect Chu Yang, his daughter, Chu Yang and the rest would have all fallen down. This immortal Shangshan is really terrifying. While Chu Yang was shocked, immortal Shangshan had already roared in anger, How dare you! As he spoke, his big hand reached out. Although it was far away, the big hand reached out in an instant like the hand of God. Senior. Lu Yangxia and the rest were frightened and tried to resist, but they could not do anything to the big hand. They were caught like 5 chicks. Bang! The 5 of them were thrown to the ground. Immortal Shangshan stared coldly at the 5 of them. How dare you peep? I'm hugging my own daughter, and you want to laugh at me? You want to spread this and ruin my daughter's reputation? You're really despicable. You've lived for so long, yet you're still so shameless. I'm embarrassed for you. These words made Chu Yang incomparably happy. His whole body felt very comfortable. Someone should teach these 5 old maggots a lesson. They don't know how to respect their elders. They are very despicable. However, Reverend Shangshan reprimanded him again and again. His logic was very clear, which made Chu Yang's heart beat like a drum. Is he really crazy or just pretending to be crazy? If he was pretending to be crazy, Chu Yang recalled that he had disguised himself as a woman just now. Putting aside the fact that his feminine voice was disgusting and nauseating, he reckoned that he had completely detested the perfected Shangshan. And killing with a borrowed knife, Chu Yang broke out in cold sweat. If Zhenren Shangshan had not gone mad, he would have gone mad. Lu Yangxia, Ta Mingyuan, and the other four were about to go crazy. They were waiting for Chu Yang and the others to be scared out of their wits and return in a sorry state. Then, they would kneel and beg for mercy and compromise. The five of them had even thought of mocking words, but who would have thought that such a sudden turn of events would occur? What made them even more shocked was that not only were they caught and sent to the mental hospital, they were also inexplicably accused. They did not even know the whole story. At the same time, they immediately faced the same predicament as Chu Yang just now. This was a lunatic. What was there to say to him? It was useless to say anything. "Senior, we're innocent." Lu Yangxia knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. He cried out, "Senior, we're just sending this year's new disciples to the Shangshan Institute. There's no such thing as peeping. Senior, we're innocent. Please investigate clearly." As for the lunatic's daughter, they could only think that they had seen a ghost. The lunatic's daughter was long dead. How could he have a daughter? Chapter 10-12. How dare you lie to me? Immortal Shangshan sneered. Is my daughter a new student of the Sky Academy? Does she need you to send her home? Cold sweat trickled down his back. Lu Yangxiao and the others saw that the madman was angry, so they hurriedly explained, "Senior, I'm sorry for your loss. Your daughter has been killed by an extraterrestrial demon and is no longer alive." Then Lu Yangxia pointed at Chu Yang. "Senior, these people are not your daughters at all. Besides, you only have one daughter. How can you have four?" Slap. Immortal Shangshan was furious. He raised his hand and slapped Lu Yangxia. "How many daughters do I have? Don't I know?" Slap. Another slap. "Can't I recognize my own daughters? Do you really think I'm a madman?" After 2 slaps, Lu Yangxia's face was deformed and distorted. It was estimated that the bones on her face were broken. "Senior, we know we are wrong. Please forgive us." Ta Mingyuan and Ping Zimo were completely sober now. They didn't want to argue with a madman. They were crazy. "Dad, you can't let them go easily. They should take the blame for the parrot. Anyway, Dad is good at craftsmanship. They can sew it back." When Chu Yang spoke, Ta Mingyuan and the others were stunned. The daughter of Crazy's Old was Chu Yang, the wild dog? They instantly gnashed their teeth and immediately understood what was going on. It must be the wild dog who pretended to be Crazy's daughter and killed them with the help of Crazy's Old. Damn it! They wanted to be angry, but they didn't dare to. They could only suppress all the anger in their hearts, for fear that a trace of it would leak out and be sensed by Crazy's Old. The 5 people were also cursing God in their hearts. The original fatal situation had turned out to be like this. What made them even angrier was that Chu Yang, a dignified man, was actually seen as a woman by Crazy Old Man as his daughter. What kind of luck is this? How could such a bizarre thing happen? The 5 people were more angry than furious. They felt that they had been played by God. That's right. What my precious daughter said makes sense. Although his crime doesn't warrant death, he must be severely punished as a warning to others. The moment Reverend Shangshan opened his mouth, they were scared out of their wits. This punishment was too terrifying. They immediately defended themselves again. "Senior, this is just a wild dog. It's very lowly. It's definitely not your daughter." "Father, they called your daughter a dog." Chu Yang felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. When Lu Yangxia and the others heard his feminine voice, not only did it give them goosebumps, but it also made their vision go dark. Immediately, the 5 of them glared at Chu Yang. Their threatening intent was self-evident. Chu Yang made an orchid gesture and looked back at them respectfully. "This young master is handsome. What can you do about it?" After that, he said to the Zhenren Shangshan in an aggrieved manner, "Father, they even scolded me. #yen%, #yen%. The 5 people instantly cursed all the dirty words in their hearts. They were really speechless. How can this be? Senior, don't be fooled by this wild dog. How dare you? Their words were directly interrupted by the Zhenren Shangshan's roar. The Zhenren Shangshan was trembling with anger. He pointed at the 5 of them and said angrily, "You've gone too far. How dare you call my daughter a dog in front of me? I won't forgive you today." Master's father. Chapter 10:13. Chu Yang's vision went black and he almost fell down. He really wanted to roast the parrot and eat it. It was very destructive, but he felt disgusted when he heard it. Lu Yangxia and the other 4 were furious, but they were even more frightened. "Senior, this is definitely groundless. We have never seen your daughter, and we would never dare to have such filthy thoughts. Senior, please understand." Chu Yang was speechless again. How terrified were these 5 old men that they directly admitted that he, a man, was a woman, and that he was the daughter of immortal Shangshan. "Dog, you deserve to die. Dog, if I don't kill you, I am not a man. You damned dog. How dare you slander us like this?" Flutter. The parrot pretended to be frightened and kept flapping its wings. However, it fell to the ground directly. Then, it was extremely frightened. It hugged the immortal Shangshan's foot with its wings and screamed, "Kill the bird! Kill the bird! Help! Master's father, the bird is scared. I told them about their evil deeds and they want to kill me. They want to eat me." As soon as the parrot finished speaking, it felt a suction force and fell into the immortal Shangshan's hand uncontrollably. It was frightened and screamed. It thought that it was exposed and almost wanted to expose its lies and confess. "Parrot, what you said just now is true." The immortal Shangshan roared, "The 5 bastards really want to humiliate my daughter." The parrot was shocked by the roar and its head was buzzing. However, it was relieved. "Master's father, what I said is true. If there is a lie, I would rather be struck by lightning. If I fall into the cycle of reincarnation, I will die a horrible death." Not only did it lie, but it also swore. Lu Yangxia, Ta Mingyuan, Ping Zimo, Dong Zisher, and Guan Jianmin were so angry that they almost fainted. Because of fear, they were trembling like a sieve. They no longer had the playful attitude they had when they were toying with Chu Yang and the others. Chu Yang sneered in his heart, "You did it, I will do it. Now, let's see who will kill who." Zhenren Shangshan was enraged and roared, "You 5 bastards, I'm going to tear you apart." "Senior, there's no such thing. We've been wrongly accused. Senior, don't listen to the words of this lowly dog. He wants to borrow Senior's hand to kill us. His actions are incomparably vile. Senior, we are all in our 50s. How could we be happy about something like this?" The 5 of them knelt on the ground and banged their heads repeatedly. "So you still know that you're 5 shameless old men." Spiritual Master Shangshan roared and pointed at Lu Yangxia. In an instant, Lu Yangxia inexplicably floated and lay flat in the air. Then, as if something was pulling him, his entire body suddenly split into pieces. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and internal organs spilled all over the ground. Chu Yang's pupils trembled when he saw this. This was even more tragic than being torn apart by 5 horses. He had clearly seen that Lu Yangxia's torso had been completely torn into pieces. At that moment, his eyes were filled with blood. "Madman, he's really a madman." At this moment Chu Yang's heart was filled with hatred. "Damn you old maggot, you actually want to kill me like this. You're too vicious." Blit. Just as Chu Yang and the rest were in shock, Spiritual Master Shangshan pointed at Ta Mingyuan. In an instant, Chu Yang sensed that in Ta Mingyuan's spiritual world, Ta Mingyuan's soul was being pulled out. Then, it was being torn apart by an unknown force and shattered into pieces. Ta Mingyuan hugged his head and howled miserably on the ground. His face was distorted and his entire body was convulsing. The remaining 3 people, Ping Zimo, Guan Jianmin and Dong Zisher, exploded in panic. "Old madman, I'll kill you!" Chapter 10:14. What kind of magical power was that? Chu Yang's eyes widened in shock. The ability to shrink a person was simply too amazing. If it wasn't a magical power, then it would be even more amazing. This crazy old man had definitely reached an unimaginable realm. No, no, no. Why can't it automatically come back together after being torn apart? The crazy old man's state suddenly changed. He was no longer as clear-headed as before. His eyes were bursting with an incomparably chaotic light. Chu Yang felt a kind of power invading his spiritual world as soon as he touched it. It wanted to tear his soul apart and tear it into countless pieces. Although it was only for a moment, Chu Yang's spirit had already been injured. Not only was there a tearing pain, but there was also a burning sensation as well as a sword wound. At that moment, he felt that his soul was like a piece of paper that was about to be torn into pieces by a big hand. He didn't want to experience that kind of feeling a second time. In midair, Lu Yangxia, who had been torn apart, was forcibly pieced together by a kind of power and reformed into a human figure. Even the blood that flowed out flowed backward. The scene was extremely strange and somewhat terrifying. On the other side, Ta Mingyuan's glabella was also glowing. The fragments of his soul were also forcibly glued together by a kind of great power. Lu Yangxia had not been resurrected, and Ta Mingyuan's soul had not recovered. Both Lu Yangxia's body and Ta Mingyuan's soul had been forcibly glued together by a kind of power. It shouldn't be like this. It definitely shouldn't be like this. Immortal Shangshan suddenly grabbed his own hair and tore it. He roared again and again. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. He grabbed Dong Zisher and the other 2 and flew out with a boom. Then, he disappeared into the void. We survived. As soon as spiritual master Shangshan disappeared, the parrot fell to the ground. Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong and the other 2 looked like they had just survived a disaster. The shock in their eyes did not dissipate for a long time. At this moment, Chu Yang also let out a long sigh of relief. At this moment, he also realized that he was covered in cold sweat and his palms were all sweaty. When he saw Lu Yangxia forcefully reforming his body and Ta Mingyuan, who was still hugging his head and lying on the ground in pain, he couldn't help but feel his heart palpitate. It's too dangerous for such a lunatic to stay here. It didn't matter if he was crazy. However, this madman possessed terrifying strength and was fond of tearing people apart. Such a madman was undoubtedly too terrifying. As for the fate of the 3 old maggots, Chu Yang looked at Lu Yangxia and Ta Mingyuan in front of him and knew what would happen to them. They would probably end up even worse than these 2 old maggots. However, there was no sympathy in his heart. If it weren't for these 5 old maggots being so vicious, they wouldn't have ended up like this. This is called eating one's own medicine. Master, let's quickly escape. We can't stay in this damned place. All the 2-legged maggots in the East Continent combined are definitely not as terrifying as this madman. The parrot looked at Lu Yangxia's forcibly gathered body. Then, it jumped up with a whoosh and landed on Chu Yang's shoulder. Hearing this, Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong and Olajin couldn't help but nod. They also couldn't agree more. I'm afraid we can't escape. Chu Yang pondered for a moment. He felt that there was no choice at all. The discrimination of the people in the East Continent was very troublesome, but if they stayed here, they would definitely die. There was still a way out. Master, let's not worry about that first. Let's give it a try. This old madman is probably researching something now. He might not care about us. The parrot naturally knew what Chu Yang meant. This old madman was so powerful that his perception must be extremely strong. If they tried to escape, they would definitely be discovered immediately. All right, follow me closely. Chu Yang immediately tried to escape with the parrot and the others. He carefully and slowly walked out of the courtyard. When he was about to leave the courtyard, he felt that the old madman still hadn't moved. Bang! Immediately, he unfolded the wings of light and dark, grabbed Chui Xinho and the others, and shot out with a boom. There were bursts of sonic booms. His speed soared to the extreme, faster than ever before. Amitabha, I hope this old madman doesn't come after us. Chapter 10-15. When Chu Yang entered the lunatic asylum, what he had done in the examination was completely exposed and spread like wildfire in the upper house and the lower house of the Sky Academy. I won't allow it, so you can't. He made such a promise and finally did it. None of the people who took the examination with him could enter the outer house or the inner house of the Sky Academy. They could only become handyman students. Such a thing could be said to be a lightning strike in the East Continent. When had the East Continent been humiliated like this by someone from the Eastern Wilderness? Therefore, Chu Yang's behavior was a great provocation to many people in the East Continent. One could imagine the repercussions it caused. Of course, such a thing was quickly defined as a disgrace to the East Continent. More than 100,000 students who took the examination were all grinding their teeth after entering the Chores Academy. Not only were they humiliated, but they were also discriminated against by the seniors of the lower house. In their hearts they hated Chu Yang even more. However, Chu Yang had been sent to the lunatic asylum. They could no longer take revenge, let alone prove themselves. In the upper house of the Sky Academy, many students were also expressing their anger and discussing this matter. Are all the people who took the examination this year trash? How could they let a wild dog be so arrogant and do whatever he wants? I can't, so I won't allow it. Wild Dog has done this. It's a disgrace to all of us in the East Continent. I also heard that Wild Dog's means are despicable. He stripped us naked and hung us up to dry. I've never heard of it. We've always been the only ones humiliating the wild dog in the Eastern Wilderness. I never thought that one day we would be humiliated by a wild dog. It's like being killed by your own dog, stewed and eaten. In the upper house of the Sky Academy, there was a general anger. Many people immediately wanted to find trouble with Chu Yang. When they heard that Chu Yang had been sent to the lunatic asylum of the lower house, they were furious again. I think the teachers of the lower house are out of their minds. How could they send these wild dog to the mental hospital? Isn't this equivalent to saying that there are no capable people in the East Continent? To kill a few wild dog, we actually used such a despicable method. We even had to borrow the hand of a madman. This is simply laughable. It seems that there are a lot of idiots in the East Continent. From now on, the wild dog in the Eastern Wilderness will definitely take advantage of this and make fun of us. Similar angry and agitated words could be heard everywhere in the upper house of the Sky Court. At a place where the Sky Academy's disciples often passed by, the Sky Academy's disciples were engaged in an intense discussion. More and more people gathered around the area. However, when they saw the two ladies approaching from afar, they could not help but fall silent. Is she the first goddess of our college, Shangguanlan? It should be the two of them. Don't you see that red dot in the distance? That should be the red sparrow. That bird is so lucky. That's right. One of them looked at the two women in the distance and said in a dreamy voice, "If I can stay by the side of such a person, let alone a bird, even if I have to be a stray dog, I'd be willing. Maybe we still have a chance." She has been in the Sky Academy for 7 or 8 years, but she is still a student of the outer house. Don't even think about it. Such a goddess is not someone you and I can touch. You can still dream about it. I heard that she seems to be waiting for someone, so she has been staying in the outer house. Otherwise, she would have become a holy disciple by now. It is said that her identity is very shocking. I heard that she is the daughter of a big shot in Zhongzhou. Chapter 10:16. As the two women approached in the distance, the crowd immediately stopped talking and became extremely quiet, as if they were afraid of blaspheming something sacred. Not only did they become quieter, but they also did not dare to look at them presumptuously. The faces of the two women quickly appeared in the eyes of the crowd. To everyone's delight, the goddesses seemed to be walking towards them. As they got closer, the faces of the two women were clearly visible to the crowd. The young girl walking in front was wearing a veil, making it impossible for others to see her face. Her entire body was also shrouded in a haze, making it impossible to see her figure. It was as if not only was her face not visible to mortals, even her general appearance, whether she was fat or thin, was also unknown. On her shoulder there was a red finch. This was the first goddess of the Sky Academy, Shangguanlan. It was said that there were no more than 5 people in the Sky Academy who could see her peerless face. A girl in a black dress was slightly behind her. The girl had an exquisite figure, and there were curves under the black dress, outlining her impressive figure. Her long black hair fluttered slightly in the breeze, which had an indescribable charm. The girl in the black dress had snow-white skin and crescent-shaped eyebrows. Under those crescent-shaped eyebrows were a pair of beautiful eyes as clear as glass. Her beautiful eyes were so beautiful that it was intoxicating. He felt like he was about to sink into them. It could be said that few men could remain calm in front of such a girl. The girl in the black dress was Shangguanlan's maidservant, Shangguanmei. At this moment, when everyone saw Shangguanmei's beauty, the surroundings became even more silent. Everyone seemed to have forgotten to breathe. They could not imagine how beautiful Shangguanlan could be when the maidservant was already so beautiful. The breeze blew, bringing bursts of fragrance. In the silence, the people found that the goddess was really coming towards them, and they could not help but feel excited. Many people had already secretly tidied up their appearance. Whoosh! Shangguanlan stopped, but the maidservant Shangguanmei jumped and came to the front of the crowd, so that they could see her more clearly. She had an extremely delicate oval face, and her glass-like eyes blinked gently. She smiled gently, which instantly tugged at the heartstrings of everyone present. "Can I ask, what were you talking about just now?" His voice was like a jade bead falling onto a silver plate, clear and tranquil. When it entered the ears of everyone present, they felt that it was incomparably pleasing to the ears. As she spoke, the faint smile on Shangguanmei's face completely bloomed. In an instant it made all the flowers pale in comparison, and everyone present was absent-minded. For a moment they actually forgot to answer. Nearby, Shangguanlan, who had stopped in her tracks, unconsciously looked to the east while waiting for Shangguanmei. No one knew what she was thinking. Her gaze was unhurried. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. The corners of her mouth suddenly bloomed into a beautiful smile. Unfortunately, no one saw it. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. If you didn't come, I would have hated you to death," Shangguanlan said in her heart, and her face couldn't help but turn red. The red sparrow on her shoulder couldn't help but squint its eyes. "Do you have to be like this? It's just something that happened when you were young, yet you still remember it until now. Moreover, you're sinking deeper and deeper. You're really hopeless." The red sparrow didn't dare to say what was in its heart. It had seen Shangguanlan's absent-minded appearance when she thought of someone like this many times. As for the person Shangguanlan was thinking of, it could be said that he had recognized its worth. If he hadn't gone to steal the bird's nest, it wouldn't have had the chance to be by Shangguanlan's side. Chapter 10:17. "Yes, Miss Shangguan." In the crowd, a handsome man said politely, "We were just talking about the wild dog. In this year's assessment, there is a wild dog who is extremely arrogant." "That's right." Immediately, someone rushed out and said to Shangguanmei, "This wild dog is so arrogant and direct. He said that if I don't allow it, he can't. If I don't allow it, he can't what? Shangguan Mei frowned slightly. She didn't understand at all. Someone noticed it and immediately said, Miss Shangguan, isn't there a rule in the Sky Academy? The wild dog can only enter the chores yard. After the wild dog heard it, he was extremely angry. He said that if he wasn't qualified to enter the upper house, then everyone else wouldn't be qualified. If I don't allow it, then you can't. That's the general meaning of this sentence. What's surprising is that this wild dog, through despicable means, actually managed to do it. That's why we were very angry when we heard that. Xiao Mei, what's that person's name? As soon as Shangguan Lan transmitted her voice, Shangguan Mei immediately asked, What's the name of this person from the eastern wilderness? Miss Shangguan is so kind. Even the wild dog doesn't look down on you. That's right, Miss Shangguan is truly admirable. Our words just now were indeed a little rude. After all, people from the eastern wilderness are also human. No one immediately answered Shangguan Mei's question. Instead, many people flattered her and tried their best to be subtle, so as to arouse Shangguan Mei's dislike of them. However, there was an honest-looking person who answered directly. He blushed and didn't dare to look at Shangguan Mei. He stammered, That person, I heard that his name is Chu Yang. Chu Yang. Hearing this, Shangguan Mei's ears buzzed. She had heard this name so many times that her ears were about to grow calluses. Then, she immediately turned her head and saw that her Mrs. eyes immediately blurred. She even muttered to herself, Could it be him? It was a dreamy voice. Everyone who heard it felt as if they had heard the most beautiful voice in the world, and this voice seemed to have brought them into a dream. At this moment, Shangguan Lan was completely immersed in her memories. She clearly remembered how terrified she was every day when she was being hunted down and had just escaped into the eastern wilderness. At that time, it was a little boy who accompanied her all the time, making her happy. Every time there was thunder, she would be even more scared. She would always hide in the boy's arms and then hug him to sleep peacefully. At that time, it seemed that only that boy could give her a sense of security. She still remembered that boy's silly smile. She remembered even more clearly the expression on the boy's face when he waved goodbye to her when she left. It was filled with reluctance. Scenes flashed through her mind. As time passed, not only did these memories not fade, but they became even clearer. Especially when the little boy's smile would emerge from the bottom of her heart every time she felt afraid. Lan don't be afraid. I'm here. At this moment, Shangguan Lan seemed to hear the boy's tender voice comforting her again. She couldn't help but smile. Her smile was still innocent and bright, but she didn't know if that boy had changed or what he had become. She had seen many outstanding men, perhaps even stronger and more perfect than that boy. They could be said to be the best partners in everyone's eyes, but what did this have to do with her? Although these men were very good, they were not what she wanted. If that boy was not what she wanted, then perhaps no one in this world would be able to move her heart. At least, that was what she thought. When that time came, she would no longer come into contact with any men. What she wanted to do was to read books, compose poems, look at the cliffs, admire the snow, listen to the rain, and most importantly, cultivate again, and continue to cultivate. Chapter 10:18. Could it be him? Shangguan Lan's almost sleep-talking words stunned everyone present. They were extremely surprised. They did not dare to have any improper thoughts about Shangguan Lan. What right did a wild dog have? They couldn't believe it, and their eyes couldn't help but look at Shangguan Lan, but Shangguan Mei cut off their line of sight. I'm afraid it's just the same name. Miss had a childhood playmate named Chu Yang. Shangguan Mei didn't admit or deny the ambiguous words. It seemed that she still needed to confirm it. But when everyone heard this, there was an uproar immediately. That's what I said. How could it be? How could a mere wild dog be worthy? We're all guilty. How could we have such thoughts just now? Yes, we're all guilty. While speaking, someone immediately knelt down and apologized to Shangguanlan. We offended you just now. Please forgive us. Please forgive us. No one present dared to call Shangguanlan by her name, and they didn't even know how to address her respectfully. Therefore, when apologizing, they neglected to call her Shangguanlan. Shangguanlan looked at the scene in front of her, and her heart was immediately clouded. She was worried. Even if it's really Brother Yang, I'm afraid I can't recognize him immediately. For a moment, she was worried. When she thought of having so many admirers in the sky courtyard, she was even more worried, like a heavy mountain pressing on her heart. Brother Yang, she looked at the lower courtyard leisurely and said to herself, if I go to see you now, I'm afraid I can only hurt you. Then, she said to Shangguan Mei, let's go. The original joy instantly turned into endless sadness and worry. The two women then left, but the fragrance still lingered in the place. Everyone present faintly felt that something was wrong. They found that the goddess of the sky courtyard seemed to have an inexplicable relationship with Wild Dog. This made them very uncomfortable, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. After leaving, Shangguanlan inquired that Chu Yang was directly sent to the lunatic asylum of the lower courtyard. After thinking about it again and again, she sent someone to rescue Chu Yang. At the same time, she ignored everything and went straight to the lower courtyard. When Shangguanlan rushed to the lower courtyard, Chu Yang and Parrot had just successfully escaped from the lunatic asylum and appeared in the lower courtyard. In an instant, they were immediately surrounded like aliens. Isn't that Wild Dog? Why is it here? If it's not Wild Dog, who else can it be? It's so dog-like. Where did this wild dog come from? How could it enter the lower courtyard of the sky courtyard? Could it be those arrogant wild dogs? The ones who bit people in this assessment? Weren't those stray dogs sent to the asylum? There were more and more onlookers. They followed Chu Yang wherever he went, and then Chu Yang was heavily surrounded. Being looked at like a monkey, Chu Yang was already in a bad mood. When he heard countless humiliating words, he couldn't help but feel angry and his face became gloomier. The lunatic asylum was horrible, but the outside was even more unbearable. Chu Yang had thought in advance that they would be targeted by the people of the East Continent, but he never expected that it would be such a scene. It seemed that everyone in the East Continent had great malice against them, without exception. These wild dog were sent to the lunatic asylum, but they could still come out alive. It's really strange. Very soon, the identities of Chu Yang and others were confirmed by the crowd. This time, more people gathered, including the seniors and the freshmen of the sky courtyard. The more than 200,000 people who were taking the assessment with Chu Yang were only a small part of the assessment, not all of them. Before Chu Yang, many people had entered the sky courtyard, and many people were taking the assessment after him. Chapter 10:19. In my opinion, even the old madman of the lunatic asylum despises the wild dog. This is the only reasonable explanation. The old madman thinks that using a wild dog as an experiment doesn't mean anything at all. The wild dog is a dog after all, not a human. Chu Yang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, but he soon recovered his smile. Nothing could be solved with a black face. The angrier he was, the happier the other party would be. As for the current situation, it was too tricky. Chu Yang had never encountered such a dangerous situation. It was an extremely dangerous situation, an unprecedented danger. There was a rule in the Sky Academy that students were not allowed to kill each other in the academy, and violators would pay with their lives. But it was not very useful. Based on the discrimination of the East Continent in the Eastern Wilderness, even if they were killed, it would be a perfunctory death at most. Chu Yang had no time to do anything. There were so many people in the East Continent, and many of them were very powerful. He couldn't even count how many of them were in the soul amalgamation realm. If there was one, perhaps the only thing he could rely on was the name of the lunatic asylum. Everyone, it's good that you've gathered here. I suddenly found something in the lunatic asylum, and I'll make a public announcement to you. After being surrounded for a while, Chu Yang thought for a while and decided that he couldn't wait for death, so he took the initiative to attack. As soon as he opened his mouth, the crowd suddenly became quiet, and then he began his speech. First of all, I'd like to announce a very sad news to you, but I'm very happy to hear it. Ha ha! However, as soon as he finished speaking, after a short moment of silence, the crowd instantly erupted into loud laughter and clamor. This wild dog really doesn't know what he's talking about. He's extremely daring. With so many of us here, a single spit from each of us could drown him. It's fine if he's not trembling in fear, but he's still planning on showing off his tongue. The wild dog is unprecedented. I've never seen such an arrogant wild dog. The wild dog is so bold now. It doesn't hide when it sees people, and it even dares to bark at people. Crack! Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing gnashed their teeth so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. Their eyes were practically spitting fire. For a moment, the parrot felt that the asylum was so cute and warm. It couldn't wait to fly back to the asylum. Wild dog? Chu Yang sneered. I ask you to watch your faces. I'm now representing the Shang Shanzhenren, and what I'm conveying is the will of the Shang Shanzhenren. As for what you think, it doesn't matter to me. At this time, he absolutely could not back down. If he did, the other party would be even more insatiable. Chu Yang ignored the sarcasm, mockery, and clamor. He continued, First, the 5 teachers in charge of the examination were all killed by the extraterrestrial devils when they were sending us to the Shangshan yard. 1. Chu Yang's words were earth-shattering. Immediately, a buzzing sound rang in the minds of many people. Then, they started to discuss. Otherworldly demons? That can't be right. Could it be that the seal in the asylum is broken? It's very possible. There must be a reason why these wild dog could come out alive. If so, isn't it dangerous? Humph, I think the wild dog is just an alarmist. Chu Yang was indeed an alarmist. He couldn't care too much now. He had to escape from the disaster in front of him first. If he could use fake news to attract the attention of these maggots in the East Continent, they would have a chance to escape back to the asylum. If they were lucky, they might be able to escape from the Sky Academy. They definitely couldn't stay in the Sky Academy anymore. If they didn't escape, they would die. Chapter 10:20. After the people of the East Continent discussed for a while, Chu Yang said to himself again, Immortal Shangshan asked me to bring a message to the Dean of the Sky Academy and the senior members of the Academy. The seal of the Shangshan Academy is about to break. He can't hold on for long. After a pause, Chu Yang said directly, I've said all I need to say. After that, he immediately left with Cui Xinho and the other 2 and returned to the lunatic asylum. Along the way, whenever Chu Yang walked past, the crowd would immediately make way for him. He couldn't help but feel happy. If they could get rid of the crowd, they would really have a chance to escape from the Sky Academy. At that time, as long as Chu Yang fought his way out before the people of the East Continent gathered, he would be able to escape from the Sky Academy. Chu Yang's footsteps were getting faster and faster. Cui Xinho and the other 2 followed closely behind. Seeing that they were about to walk out of the crowd and use their body movement to escape, a cold voice sounded like muffled thunder. Humph, wild dog, you've got a lot of gut. You actually dare to spread false information and spread alarmism. You deserve to die. The voice was very cold. The moment the voice sounded, many people in the crowd moved and immediately surrounded Chu Yang and the others again. Wild dog, can you leave? spreading false information and spreading rumors. You have committed a heinous crime. How dare you leave? This wild dog is so bold. He even dared to talk nonsense about the seal breaking. If we don't kill him, we can't appease the public anger. This wild dog must die. Even the rules of the academy can't save him. They were so aggressive that some people even released their momentum and prepared their killing moves. Many people even pulled out their weapons. Damn it, I was so close. Which bastard is it? If I, Chu Yang, don't die today, I'll definitely take your head the next day to avenge today's hatred. Chu Yang could only stop in his tracks. His heart was filled with anger as he coldly looked in the direction of the voice. In midair, there was a young man with a dignified appearance. He was about 25 or 26 years old. He was wearing luxurious clothes and had a sword on his back. He looked like a divine sword that could pierce through the heavens. The aura he exuded was enough to make people kneel down and worship him. When Chu Yang looked over, this person's cold eyes immediately stared at Chu Yang. Shua. This person's gaze swept across the crowd. His gaze was incomparably sharp. Anyone who came into contact with his gaze felt their hearts tremble. They felt as if they had seen a bolt of lightning piercing through the sky and striking their minds. They were completely stunned. Just by looking at him, this person seemed to be able to control their souls. At this moment, Chu Yang also felt a great sharpness piercing into his spiritual world. In an instant, countless sharp swords appeared in his spiritual world, forming a storm of swords. The sharp swords were about to pierce Chu Yang's soul and inflict serious damage to it. Clang! 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 The saber and sword martial soul shook, and all the sharp swords shattered and disappeared. Others were already shocked. Just now, Chu Yang was the main one to bear the brunt of the attack. It was completely imaginable what he had experienced. If it weren't for Chu Yang, his soul would have been seriously injured just now. Sword cultivator, sword martial soul. What an amazing cultivation of sword principle! The peak of the soul amalgamation realm. No, it has already surpassed the soul amalgamation realm. It should be the cultivation of the transcendence realm. Chu Yang had a keen divine sense. With just a glance, he captured a lot of information. His heart suddenly tightened, and the pressure suddenly increased countless times. The transcendence realm. With such a cultivation, he was at least a student of the Sky Academy. Such a person actually paid attention to the assessment and the affairs of the handyman yard. Damn it! Do you have a grudge against the people of the Eastern Wilderness? Do you have to target them like this? Chu Yang gritted his teeth. He had never been so aggrieved in his life. Never before had he been so impatient to immediately kill someone and dismember that person's body into 10,000 pieces. Only the person in front of him made Chu Yang feel the strongest killing intent. In a sure-death situation, he had found a glimmer of hope, but now this glimmer of hope was completely obliterated by this person. Chapter 10:21. Huh! He was surprised that Chu Yang was able to withstand the man's pressure. He was even a little stunned. You're a wild dog, but you do have some skills. No wonder you can play around with those trash from the East Continent. Chu Yang hid his killing intent and said coldly, "Am I exaggerating or are you ignorant? Anyway, I've already done my duty of informing and conveyed Jinren Shangshan's message." Bang! With that, Chu Yang took a step forward and said, "Those who want to kill me, come at me. I just need some time. Otherwise, you would all be like chickens and dogs. What's the use of having so many people? I will kill millions of you. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Even if I can't defeat you, I will die on the way." Ga. When the parrot heard Chu Yang's words, it immediately laughed strangely and said, "All of you from the East Continent are trash. This divine bird looks down on you and disdains you. Millions of people bullying one person. That's fine. But if you can't handle it, you go home and cry. Ask your parents to come. You are really promising. The parrot was ready to risk everything. How could it not be angry? Even if it could move its wings today, no matter how weak it would still stab out. Ha ha! Cui Xinho and the other two were also affected by Chu Yang's fearlessness. They laughed loudly and said, "You call us wild dog. What right do you have?" In the assessment, more than 20 people were played around and humiliated. What right do you have to belittle us? Cui Xinho pointed at them and said word by word, "All of you are worse than dogs. You think too highly of them. You call them dogs. Do they deserve it?" Hao Haodong sneered and pointed at them. "They are all maggots. Maggots in a cesspool. Only maggots can be so numerous." Ha ha! Olajing took a big step forward and beat his chest. "Come on, two-legged maggots of the East Continent. I will beat 100,000 of you." His laughter was endless and fearless. Chu Yang's group of 4, as well as the parrot, faced off against countless cultivators from the East Continent. They laughed heartily, as if life and death were child's play. Watching this scene from the outermost periphery, Shangguanlan's initial apprehension of seeing Chu Yang completely disappeared. She felt that her brother goat should not have changed. At the very least, he would grow up to be an unyielding man, just as she had imagined. She no longer had any concerns. The sky courtyard could not accommodate them. She would leave the sky courtyard with Chu Yang. Of course, she was also prepared to make a move. After that, she couldn't help but stare blankly at the face that she hadn't seen for more than 10 years. It clearly had the outline of the little boy in the depths of her memory, but it had become even more handsome. Rather than saying that he was handsome, it would be better to say that he was beautiful. That face of his seemed to be even more beautiful than that of many women. His eyebrows were very delicate, as if all the crescent moons in the world had been plucked and settled down. His eyes were still as black and white as before, but there seemed to be a hint of cunning. At this moment, he was even more unbridled and resolute, and his arrogance could not be concealed. Shangguanlan found no fear in those eyes, only anger, unwillingness, and stubbornness. She also noticed that Chu Yang's mouth had been curling into a sneer, a mocking smile, and perhaps a trace of unruliness. Even at this moment, there seemed to be a trace of sloppiness, and there was a trace of roguishness and evilness in him. "Brother Goat, it seems that you are really not a decent person." Shangguanlan couldn't help but sigh in her heart, and her face suddenly turned red. It seemed that it was because she thought of what Chu Yang had done in the secret assessment realm, stripping people naked and hanging them up to dry. It also seemed that it was because of something else. Chapter 10:22. The Red Sparrow was also sizing up Chu Yang. When it saw the parrot on Chu Yang's shoulder, it couldn't help but squint its eyes. It was even more certain in its heart. Such a horrible laugh, it must be a loser bird. It thought that the parrot was its counterpart, just like Chu Yang's counterpart to Shangguanlan. However, it really didn't like the parrot, although it looked very domineering now. Humph! Shangguanlan was lost in thought when a cold snort woke her up. She immediately looked over, and the aura around her suddenly became cold. "Miss wants to kill him." Shangguanmei was slightly shocked, but not very surprised. How could she not be angry when her fiancé was targeted like this? Especially her miss, who had been talking about this Chu Yang. "Wild dog, I can crush you with a finger." The young man in the air sneered, and his expression was even more disdainful. "Ha ha!" Chu Yang laughed loudly. "Little thing, tell me your name. Listen well and remember, when you go to the King of Hell later, don't say you don't know who sent you to see the King of Hell." The young man sneered, "Inner yard Dongfang Che." After a pause he continued, "Wild dog, you should still remember a person called Dongfang Jing. You mean Jing Fongdong, that trash? Chu Yang was scornful. That little bastard was right. He couldn't beat me and really went home crying. But it's understandable, after all, he's just a kid. Wild dog, you're bullshitting. Among the crowd, a man with a shiny bald head flashed out in an instant. Who else could it be but Dongfang Jing? At this moment, his eyes were incomparably resentful. Thinking of the humiliation he had suffered before, his face was distorted, his chest was heaving, and his whole body was trembling with anger. Kid, go play somewhere else. I'm fighting with your father. If I accidentally hurt you, you'll cry again. Chu Yang's face was full of disdain. Waha! The parrot suddenly burst into laughter. Your bald head is so shiny, who shaved it for you? Bang! The parrot laughed until its stomach hurt, and directly fell from Chu Yang's shoulder, laughing on the ground. Its focus was different from the others. When everyone saw Dongfang Zheng's bald head, they couldn't help but want to burst into laughter, making Dongfang Zheng's face was red, and he was so ashamed that he wanted to die. Wild dog, I'm going to kill you! Dongfang Zheng was infuriated. His face was ferocious and he was about to rush out. However, he was stopped by someone. He turned around and glared at the newcomer. When he realized that the newcomer was wearing the uniform of the inner yard, his ferocity immediately disappeared. He then cupped his fists and said, Dongfang Jing, I didn't know it was senior brother and offended you. Please forgive me. His scalp was up Dongfang S, but this was scalp S just scabs S. This person's head could be said to be full of potholes. At this moment, he had a ferocious look on his face as he stared at Chu Yang. It was as if he wanted to swallow Chu Yang alive. You're at the 9th level of the spirit stage. If you fight against a wild dog, the wild dog will say that we're bullying dogs. As he spoke, the student cupped his hands towards Dongfang Che, who was in the air, and said, Brother Dongfang, this wild dog humiliated my Gongsun family. You won't mind if I take action, right? Brother Gongsun, just do it. Dongfang Che also cupped his hands. It's just a wild dog. I'm afraid that I'll dirty Brother Gongsun's hands. Please send my regards to your brother. I'll definitely do it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.